pre-approved molestation. Okay, next up, we'll open the meeting for public comment. If you would like to speak to the committee, please come forward and state your name and address for the recording secretary. Please keep in mind that this is your time to offer your opinions or express your concerns to the committee, but that we cannot engage in discussion or debate about those issues. So would anyone like to address the committee? No? Okay, that was easy enough.
That was good.
Okay. No CCHS representative,
Not for the summer.
Yeah, for the summer. Good news?
Oh, I just have one piece of good news. So ours, as I talked to last time, our students were in the Knowledge Bowl, and they did come in second place. They did an unbelievable job. They were up there against Lowell and took Tingsboro. Tingsboro took the title, but that's okay. We'll be coming back nice and strong, and it was just it was a great night because it was in the Performing Arts Center. We got a lot of feedback on how the venue itself was wonderful, so we just want to congratulate our students for doing so well.
Anybody else?
Oh, and school's over.
That's a good news, too. I want to echo what Linda said about the Knowledge Bowl. It was my first time going, and very impressive. What those kids know, it's unbelievable. Not only was it impressive, the knowledge, but it was entertaining. You know, it is a competition, and you're watching that scoreboard, and you're hoping your team's going to make it to the next round. So much so I was only planning to go one night. I ended up going the second night because I had to see how it came out. And our kids did a really good job with that. A couple other things that happened in terms of good news. We had the Attorney General in at Parker Middle School. Paid a visit to one of the health classes, and she went over what she does as Attorney General, but also talked about the opioid crisis, and kind of led into discussions about other drugs and vaping and smoking and that type of thing. And like we heard earlier in the year, it's just amazing how young kids are starting those things. And definitely something we have to look at, going forward in terms of education, and unfortunately starting earlier and earlier, because they're starting 5th, 6th grade with those type of things. And then we also had Representatives Arcerio and Golden come to do a tour of the high school and kind of talk about school safety, and just kind of bounce some ideas around. So I thought that was a very productive meeting also. So there's a couple other things that were going on.
I just want to add on to the opioid discussion. The legislature passed a bill increasing the age for kids for vaping. So it's going to be 21 for vape products as well. So that was kind of good news. I think it just has to pass the House, has to pass the Senate, and they don't think it's going to be any issue.
Is it all smoking? Not just vaping, right?
No, all smoking,
yeah, right.
but
So cigarettes and everything
cigarettes,
else, yeah.
I thought cigarettes was already
I
21.
thought cigarettes were 18.
I think cigarettes is 18.
Okay, it'll be
Cigarettes are
21,
everything,
then it'll be 21 for all.
across the board, which is
all products, yeah.
Just one thing on the Knowledge Bowl. I had a chance to speak with some of the people who ran it from Lowell, and they couldn't say enough good things about Chelmsford Telemedia, our facilities people, and the people who oversee the, renting out of the pack and whatnot. They were just absolutely thrilled, and this is a quote: "We felt like we were treated like royalty," which was really nice to hear.
Yeah, they did go above and beyond.
They really did.
Our telemedia group always puts on a great performance. They even changed things up a little bit, going from night 1 to 2. In night 2, if you're a viewing audience at home, the questions came up on the screen. It was really well done.
It was incredibly
and they
well
do
done.
go above and beyond to try to help the groups renting. Bernie Battle is very accommodating as far as the scheduling piece go, and Brian and the custodians at the high school, making sure that it was clean, just set up and
just whatever they needed. They
Yeah, they
just
were there
asked
to
and
help
it was
out.
there. So I
Yep.
just wanted to pass that on, that it was really nice to hear. I think that they deserve a lot of credit for.
Tom and Dan, we're always doing stuff last minute too, so between Tom, Dan, Pete, and then even all the kids that come back and help. I know like Stephen McDonald comes back,
Right.
you have Craig Robinson, they, like I said, we're usually last minute, and they're always very accommodating and
Incredibly.
able to pull it off like they knew about it months in advance.
Right.
Anybody else? Good news? Okay, I guess we're on to new business. So the first thing up is end of the year review and technology.
Yeah, we had, we're going to have a couple end-of-year reviews this evening. We have Bill Silva with us from our technology department, and we've asked Bill to kind of do a year-in review. There's been a lot happening with technology over the course of this past year. This summer is going to be a very hectic summer. He's going to touch on that and give us a little bit of a look ahead for what's going to be happening in technology over the course of this next year. But would like to welcome Bill. Turn it over to you so I don't steal too much of your thunder, and ask you to tell us where you're at.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, school committee, to come and present to you. I know your agendas are always pretty full, so we appreciate it. I did write a report for you that's in your packet, and I'm just going to try to give you the highlights. And I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, and if I'm not going fast enough, you can just let me know, and we'll speed it up. Okay, so these are kind of the points I'd like to touch on. I'll give you an overall year in review. I'll tell you about some of the projects that we accomplished from last summer to now. We'll talk about integration, curriculum, and professional development that happened in the district this year. We'll talk about increasing devices and potential leasing of devices in the future, and some upcoming projects that we have for this summer and beyond this summer. Before I get too deep into this, and because I don't always get to remind my group exactly how fantastic they are, I just want to start by saying, in case I don't bring it up during the confines of this presentation, this group that I have in technology is something else. They always go above and beyond. They really make everyone feel like they're the most important thing and the most important people that they deal with. And so I just want to just give them that thank you and tell them that I appreciate everything that they do for our staff every day. This year, they closed close to 8,000 tickets. So that equates to roughly 4 an hour if you go by our work year and not the 181 days. And for a staff the size of mine to think about these folks closing up to 4 tickets an hour, it's pretty impressive. Okay, as far as some of the projects go, we had the Parker Middle School infrastructure that was completely redone. That was a project that happened throughout last summer. So the staff there came back this year to all new wireless, all new switching, and an enhanced connection back to the central office core. The one thing that I took away from this is, as we went through all the tickets and I looked at the network-related tickets at Parker, there was 0 tickets there this year for network. And that's clearly the way you want a network to run, and that's what we'd like to accomplish at the rest of our buildings. And we'll be on the way to doing that this summer. We also put in a new virtual appliance. It's called vSAN by VMware. This basically is a place where all of our servers live, and that was quite a challenging upgrade. We actually had the entire thing set up, and it crashed on us shortly after we went live with it. But you know, my folks responded to that call, our vendors responded to that call, and got everything back up and running, kept the district abreast of exactly you know, what the outage would look like, approximately how long we'd be down. But those are always good learning experiences, and from that we now have a disaster recovery point in the high school, and we're also working with a vendor to just do better backup so that we can get back online quicker if there's some kind of an issue. We worked on exterior security cameras last summer, and that was done in conjunction with Lieutenant Spence at the police department. And he's so helpful and really knows about building security, so he walks the grounds with us, and he'll walk interiors of buildings with us for best camera placements for his folks to be able to see what they need to see. And now all of our schools have a full perimeter view, so that's a good first step to securing the buildings. And then finally, some classroom technology. We added technology to approximately 40 classrooms. This also included the modular classrooms. We put in really nice, they're called Clear Touch displays. They're interactive television, and they can have, you know, up to 8 to 10 people interact with it at one time and touch it. And the teachers have really said that they like this type of technology. It seemed to be really well received. All right, I'll move on to our integration, curriculum, and professional development. So this year we piloted a new product called iReady. And we did this with a group of 32 pilot teachers, However, the company gave us access for everyone in K to 8 to be able to have a license. So we decided that we would give the diagnostic exam for math and ELA to everyone in K to 8. So this year, there were 3 tests given in math, 3 tests in ELA, and we did professional development for those 32 pilot teachers and some of the tech people who were responsible for supporting the program. And I'll just give you a quick view of like some of the reporting that we get back from this program so you can kind of understand what this is doing for us. Ultimately, this tests the students. It adapts to them, so it'll give them a question that's probably a little too hard. If they get it wrong, it'll back them down, and so on and so forth. So they move throughout this adaptive test, and basically it finds out exactly what standards they need help with and which ones they're already proficient at. And then you get back some reporting similar to this. So this is a building level report, something that a principal might look at. And this just happens to be for math, but these are detailed by math and ELA. This would show the principal, here's your grades K to 4. On the very first diagnostic this year, here's the kids who were at risk, here's the kids who are 1 level below, and here's the kids who are on or above grade level. And then you would, they can compare that as we do diagnostics. So here's a end of the year report, and what you'll notice is that so many of the kids came up to on or above level that 1 level below really shrunk, and we really took down the at-risk. So that gives the sort of the building leaders an idea of here's what's happening, what the grade levels look like, and you know, things that they might need to take a look at. For a teacher, you get something a little different. You get a report similar to this, which will show you how the student performed over the 3 diagnostics, and then it will show you each of the domains and how they did there. And when you click into any of these domains, it'll give you even further detailed information for that student. So this is what an actual report for a student would look like. This happens to be the number in operations discipline, and it goes ahead and tells you exactly what the student can do, what some of the next steps for instruction are, and then one of the key pieces is it gives the teachers tools for instruction. So we always talk about differentiating and doing interventions and things like that, but we often don't provide teachers with the, you know, all the materials that they need to be able to perform those interventions. We also, you know, take for granted that even though they're a 6th grade teacher, if a kid missed a standard from 4th grade, that they automatically know the 4th grade standards when they've been teaching 6th grade. So this is very helpful for them. At the same time this happens, the students get a prescribed pathway that they can log into in iReady, and it actually provides instruction to them. So they get not only the teacher intervention and the extra lessons with them, they get additional instruction in an online fashion, and then this monitors everything and hopefully fills any of those gaps and helps kids grow. And then finally, this would be a district level report, kind of shows you each grade level and the gains that have been made between the first diagnostic and the last diagnostic. And again, this would be you know, a district or curriculum coordinator type of report, so they'd start to see where, you know, where they needed to address some certain things. Okay, so that was iReady. Then we also rolled out something called the Clever Portal, and this was set up by my database manager, my student database manager, and what this allows is single sign-on to the most commonly used programs that we interact with. And it takes a lot of work on the back end getting all of this information from X2 populated into Clever, but once that's set up, then it's able to allow kids to go to one site, and teachers for that matter, and then click on an icon and be automatically granted access. So I'll show you what a student and a teacher would see here. When they log into the Clever portal, they're greeted with all these different icons for programs that we use. And once they're signed into Clever, they can click on any of these and they're not asked for an additional username or password. It takes them right into the program. The little code on the bottom there, they call those Clever badges. And each one, you can make them for any grade level, but we use them with K to 1. and it made it a lot easier for kids to log into the machines to take testing. They just say log in with a badge, it turns the camera on the Chromebook, they hold the badge up, and it logs them into the Clever portal, and off they go. So that was a nice addition this year. As far as some other professional development that we delivered, we did Google G Suite training. We basically got to train every staff member, I think, this year, including paraprofessionals, which was great because we don't get to interact with them a lot as far as PD goes. So we were given time on 2 different half days to do that. And basically, like I said, every single staff member received some type of Google G Suite PD. We were also set up a graduate course in blended learning. And that was something that was asked for by the staff when I had surveyed them in my first year. So we were able to finally deliver that. And we had 26 people take it. There were several more on the wait list. And that was really well received, and we're looking forward to doing that again next year. In addition, we trained about 100 proctors to give MCAS online this year. So that took a visit to every single building, getting those folks up to speed with how to make sure the testing could run properly in class in each session, and that went very well. And then PD for our staff, we were able to send the entire tech staff to MassQ. That's one of the biggest technology events each year, and there's a lot of professional development breakout sessions during that, so they were all able to attend that. And the library staff was able to go to MSLA, which is their biggest library event, so that group got to go there. And PD it's very important. You know, I feel strongly that sending folks to professional development is key. Keep their skills to the level we expect them to work at, and we'll continue that in the future. All right. This year we added about 1,000 Chrome devices into our environment. So at present we have about 1,700 all told. Generally, these are deployed as carts, and essentially we do that so that we can roll a cart into a room for testing, or to have teachers do projects with them and things like that. The thing that we began to notice this year that we're running into is we just can't add these devices fast enough to kind of keep up with, one, the demands of what people want to do with them, but two, to keep up with testing. So just for instance, next year we need to give MCAS digitally in 10th grade. In fact, we need to do the entire district, but this is just one example. In 10th grade, we'll need 11 carts to be able to successfully complete that testing. The high school right now owns 5 carts. I need to be able to add 6 carts into that building just to be able to make sure we can do MCAS next year. The cost of that, somewhere around $65,000, $66,000 to add those carts. The available budget is about $67,000 for all of instructional technology in the high school. So just looking at carts by themselves, we're never going to be able to keep up with that demand. And even if we get close to meeting the demand, as we get there, the ones that are 4 years old are now going to have to be replaced. So it's going to become this cyclical problem that we need to address.
Just a quick question. And that doesn't qualify for capital, right?
It does not qualify for capital in Chelmsford now.
Not the devices.
Yeah, I know. Just want to be sure.
So what I've seen before in other districts is sometimes when you enter into a lease, you can rapidly increase your device acquisition, and it allows you to obviously pay over time, but it becomes this yearly part of your budget. However, you get the benefit of having all the devices up front, and the company knows they're going to get paid each year. So just for some rough numbers, I started to reach out to a couple of our vendors, and for somewhere in the ballpark of $90,000 a year, we could lease a device for every grade 5 and every grade 9 student in Chelmsford. And if we continued that for 4 years, essentially what you'd have is a 1-to-1 from grades 5 to 12. So ultimately, it would mean a line item being in the budget for somewhere around $360,000, but it would provide you a one-to-one initiative basically for your entire district except for the elementary schools. So this would handle a lot of things. It would handle no more cart methodology in the middle schools or the high school. It would give a student a device to work on every single day. Teachers wouldn't have to sign up for labs or any carts or anything like that, because every student would arrive in their class with a device. Also, since we're redoing the infrastructure, we'll have plenty of bandwidth, plenty of wireless, things like that, to run something like this. So in this coming fiscal year, I'd like to form a committee and start to investigate what all those costs would be, various policies that we probably need to put into place, and various protocols to make sure we could successfully implement that. But I think for a longer range goal, that's what I'd like to begin working on. And it's something that I'm sure will require further discussion, but I think it's something that we can attain, and it would be a good step for the district.
So would you phase it in, like, so 1 year be the 5th and 9th, and then the next year's 5th and 9th, so it would take
Yeah.
you 4 cycles to get everybody the device?
So it would always be 5th and 9th.
Right.
Right, every year that would start anew. And what that would allow us to do is, train teachers in 5th and 9th grade, say this year, for something like that to potentially happen. They'd be prepared, and then we'd train the next grade level of teachers next year, and they'd be prepared for those kids to move up. So once you went that way for 4 years.
Yeah, so the
you'd
5th
have
grader would
everyone-
just bring that same device to 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then turn it over.
Yeah, you turn it over at the end of 8th grade, get a new one for 9th grade, and go 9 to 12. And I think realistically, Chromebooks and some of these, less expensive devices, that's about the useful life of them. You're gonna get about 4 years. It's, unfortunately, I think the model that got introduced into technology in schools a long time ago was, here's a bunch of money, buy as many devices as you can, and never replace them. Just hope that they keep working for the next 10 or 11 years. But that doesn't, as we've seen, it doesn't work. And you're constantly trying to play catch-up at that point. This just allows you to refresh, and allows you to give the kids and the teachers the best of what you can offer through leasing.
So the initial cost of first year would be 90,000.
Yeah, that would,
Next year would be 90,000 again, right?
yeah, so it would go
Right.
like 90, 180,
Right, right,
so
okay.
forth.
Yeah, the 90,000 would basically equip you 2 grade levels.
Yeah.
So then they're gonna keep the device,
Right.
go the next year, you still have to pay the $90,000
Okay, because of lease.
lease,
Okay,
right?
yep.
But, and then you have to backfill, so you gotta put another 90 on. So that's why, basically, in a 4-year cycle, you would have paid for your cost,
Yep.
rotate out your computers, but in 4 years' time, every grade level in the district, well, 5 to 12, would have their own device. It would also, again, allow the technology department to be able to kind of thoughtfully plan the professional development and the training for the staff, so that they were really moving their curriculum and assessments and whatnot to be fully digital, right along with the kids. So that is something that, we've asked Bill and his staff to work on this year. I think it'd be great. There's not a lot of districts that have kind of implemented a full one-on-one type buy or lease. I'd love to be on the head of that curve and be able to do this. So there is a lot of thought that has to go into it, a lot of PD. I think, again, the policies is something, because now, the students would be given a device, they'd have to go home. You're gonna have the kids that leave the district, how to get the device back, all those kind of things we haven't had to worry about, because we haven't really had the devices to give out. But I think this would be a great year and a great project to kind of work on over the course of this year. We've also identified, just when it comes to funding, this might be a really good opportunity to be able to earmark some of that school choice funding. So that was a fund that was originally earmarked for some of the full-day K implementation. And as you know, we haven't had to use it for that. It's been kind of building for a bit. But I think if we actually kind of earmark that and said that that is going to be an annual fund that we then go and actually invest in technology, that'll probably be the recommendation, just to forecast it for you. That ends up coming your way over the next number of months.
So can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
So are we formalizing that committee to be able to look into this? So
Yeah,
that's-
I've asked Bill to do that.
Okay,
So
all
Bill
right.
is going to be
All right,
kind of
great,
setting up that
excellent.
committee and working on it, and ultimately bringing back a report for us.
Okay.
To consider and then for you to act on. It's a little too early to act on, because we'd want to have it all laid out, but that is going to be something that we've asked him to work on this
Okay,
year.
I was just wondering if they were just thinking about putting together a committee, or if it was gonna, we're really doing this.
No, I really would like to do
Okay,
this.
perfect.
And we'll be looking for members, so if you're available.
Dennis is available.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay, so, and finally, I'll get to some of the upcoming projects. The large projects that we do are typically funded by capital requests that are approved at town meeting. What's the matter?
Nothing. We're just checking. Definitely, he's fine.
Okay. So these are some of the ones that are on the agenda for this summer. Classroom technology, that was funded again, and our goal is to finish all the instructional spaces that presently do not have interactive technology. And with that comes the fact that this has been something that's been asked for in Capital Committee for 10 or 11 years at this point. So we have a bunch of technology that's now starting to fail us. So we've got to begin thinking about the replacement of that 10-year-old technology too. Now that we've done the external cameras, we're going to start moving to internal security cameras for hallways, stairwells, things like that. And again, we're working with Lieutenant Spence and the Chelmsford Police Department for those placements. So Parker is going to be one of our first test beds for the internal cameras, and we're going to attempt to get those done this summer as well.
Bill, can I just jump in for 1 second on that? I think one of the issues, people might say, well, why aren't we, kind of going at all schools at the same time? Or why don't we have the same interior camera capacity as we have exterior? And it's really because the internal infrastructure, which Bill will touch on in a second, just currently can't support that. So we had the luxury last year of having the Parker's infrastructure totally upgraded. Now they can actually have the capacity to take on internal cameras. So Bill will touch on this as we talk about network infrastructure in the other schools, but that's the reason we haven't been able to add a lot of interior cameras to the buildings.
That's correct. So, when you're talking about a network, basically you have what are known as ports in your switches, and you can plug one device in per port. And basically where we were at with many of our buildings is we were filled to capacity, all the ports were taken up. So even if we wanted to do this, we wouldn't have been able to. These infrastructure projects have now given us plenty of room for growth and to support everything that we'd like to add at the time we upgrade. So one other project set that was funded through capital, which was fantastic, was a refresh of the McCarthy, the Harrington, and the Center. That'll give us a new switching, new wireless, just like we did at the Parker. And we're also going to be using E-rate funding to cover a portion of that. So that chart's awfully hard to see. It is in your packet, but I'll read it to you. Essentially, the total for the project is $482,000 to do those 3 schools. Our E-rate reimbursement will give us approximately $106,000 off that price. So it brings the total cost to the town of $376,000. And that'll allow us to have perfect new infrastructure inside those 3 buildings. So that'll happen this summer as well.
That's from town capital, correct?
That's town capital, correct. This was an unexpected last piece that we're really excited about. The state had started a program called the Digital Connections Partnership Grant about 4 years ago. And in a previous district, I've actually applied for and got this grant before. It's a matching grant, and what they ask for is the school district to commit to spending a certain amount of money, and that's based on, your free and reduced lunch numbers and things like that. So essentially, they would ask us to spend about 50% of what they would give us as a project amount. But what they let you spend on are things like your devices, all professional development, instructional programs that you put in place, prior infrastructure work. So when you look at it, we've already spent all of this money, so there's really no downside to applying for the grant, but I'm not sure that a lot of districts understand that. So they go ahead and pay for your projects up front. They then file on your behalf for E-rate. When they get your reimbursement, they turn your reimbursement back over to you. and you essentially get 100% of the project money plus your reimbursement back. Like, it doesn't get better than this. So when you see it, you apply for it, and they always have this crazy application deadline. It's like 3 weeks, and so you're scrambling, trying to put things together. And thankfully, I had Dr. Hirsch this time, so she came up with a whole unique take on blended learning, et cetera, because they're looking for what are you going to do with this technology? It's not just for testing. How else is it going to impact your curriculum and things like that? So we had a great collaboration, put this in, and they ended up giving us $633,000. So what's going to happen with that is two things. One, I don't have to ask the town for money for the next 3 buildings, because that's going to pay for the high school, the Byam, and the South Row to have all new infrastructure. So now essentially, in a little over 2 years, we'll have completed all of our infrastructure projects at all of our buildings. So this is super exciting. At least I'm excited about it. But it's going to be quite a summer as we attempt to get these 6 buildings wired and reset before everyone comes back.
For those of you who don't know Bill, that's about as
That's
exciting as he
animated.
gets. He is super excited.
That's about as emotional as you're going to
Yeah.
see. All right. And then finally, I just wanted to, and this is in your packet, and I sent this out to staff, but a funny thing almost always happens to me when I visit buildings. Staff come up and they always tell you, like, oh, thanks for the support, or your group is great, or your technician's fantastic. But they always have this habit of saying, and I'm not really that good with technology. And Donna will probably attest to this. She's probably said it herself.
Many times.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that they work really hard at technology, and they are good at technology, but they're not good at giving themselves credit. So this is just a quick list of staff accomplishments, and this is not all they accomplished this year, but these are some things that I found very interesting. So they ran 3 successful math and ELA adaptive diagnostics with iReady. They ran all access testing for ELLs this year online. They created over 400 new Google Classrooms. There were 12,000 posts by teachers to those classrooms and 7,000 by students. They shared 400,000 files. They added 500,000 files to Google Drive. Almost every staff member participated in some kind of Google PD, and they successfully completed all MCAS sessions as mandated by the state this year. And that's fantastic. So kudos to our staff. I'll take any questions you have.
Anybody have any questions?
I have just a couple.
Sure.
So actually, the first one is related to professional development, and I was just talking about this today with some colleagues about how we're getting new things all the time, but we probably don't use them as efficiently as we could. So is there a professional development planned for teachers on how to use all of these applications, as efficiently as they possibly can? There's just so many now.
Right. So, we do have a really good basis at this point for training in Google, and we've been doing it for a couple of years steadily. And that's one of our main focuses, is how do you digitize your content? How do you share through this venue? How do you get things to kids through this venue? And I think we're doing a good job at that. We get time on half days to do some of it. We have TISs in every building who have time to go and spend with teachers and other staff members to build their skill sets. So that's a thing that I think we're doing very well. And then in addition, we do bring things in like these interactive TVs, things like that. So generally speaking, we'll have some kind of a kickoff professional development with the group that receives those, whether that's we get some substitutes and we allow them to do some training, or if they say we're willing to come after school, we're willing to do this during our planning times, things like that. And our vendors have been responsive to when we need those trainings, and will come and provide those for us. And then once we get the TISs up to speed, they kind of take over from there and continue that that outreach.
Right. And then the other question, I feel like we're kind of like straddling the fence between some of the old stuff and some of the new stuff. So I'm thinking about, for example, like smart boards are probably phasing out, even though we're just finishing putting them in. And then, you know, we're moving towards the interactive TVs. And do we have a plan for going forward, how we're going to keep up, you know, in a fiscally responsible, yet, you know, cutting-edge sort of way? Does it, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So what I can say to you about the technology, I think that what we're seeing is the prices of this technology are declining
Okay.
year by year, which is great for us. But I think we're at a point where we're going to see this current television technology really stick for a while. And the reason I say that is because companies like Google have created their own version. They have something called the Jamboard. Microsoft has created their own version. So I think that they have seen that this is sort of the direction to go.
Okay.
They're kind of marketing to companies and enterprises. So all of these other manufacturers have said, well, let's copy those ideas, and now we're getting pricing, instead of $8,000 for a unit, down in this other, you know, half that type of range.
Okay.
So I think, you know, we're being fiscally responsible, just sourcing out some of these other things. And I think, you know, it's gonna be something where we have to make a focus of, you know, now that we've completed these capital projects that were important, let's go and really focus in on this and kind of expand the funding to that area.
I think that one of the things, I think that it's just a reality now. I mean, I think we've always, for example, you know, back a long time ago, we just considered textbooks part of what we had to do, and I think we have to start thinking about technology like that, too.
Right.
It's just, you know, this is it. This is, you know, this is where we're headed, and I think it's important that we be able to provide that for the kids. So,
I agree. I mean, to Bill's point too, the costs have come down quite a bit. When the town kind of embarked on the capital to do the interactive, again, it was the smart boards, whiteboards in the past and
Right.
things like that. It's now kind of evolved to the TV, so that's what we're putting in. But when you look back at the original equipment that was installed, you know, 8, 10 years ago, what's kind of taken 10 years to get the whole district completed,
correct.
you know, probably could have, in a better fiscal reality, might have been like a 4-year type project.
Okay.
Because maybe it's like every 4 or 5 years, like a
Right.
laptop, you want to turn these things over. But that would have necessitated, instead of 80 grand a year, you would have had to spend 160 a year or whatnot. But that'll be part of the work that Bill does over the course of this next year, is at least, you know, kind of laying out at the same time, because we got to figure out how the one-on-one initiative would come into this as well, how that would also factor in.
Right, and I just want to get trapped into something where we've got this 10-year period where we're, you know, rolling something out, and then by the time we get it done, it's now, you know, kind of we're moving into something else.
Yes, I don't think it's wasteful in that,
Okay.
even though we started 10 years ago, there was just a different technology at the time.
Right.
Over the last couple of years, and, you know, even predates me, but even the years leading up to that, as technology changed, they implemented on a yearly basis whatever the latest and greatest
Okay.
technology at the time was.
Right.
They weren't just installing old whiteboards to just install them. It's just we have a bunch of different types of technology out there now.
Right.
And certainly some of the stuff that's 10 years old needs to be replaced. It
Right,
needs to be
exactly.
replaced at a quicker pace than 10
Right.
years.
Right, that's, I think,
Yeah,
what
the
I'm getting
board
at.
used to
Yeah.
be the kind of the technology piece,
Right.
but now the technology is embedded in whatever applications you're using.
Right,
So like even if
exactly.
you take these G Suite type concepts, they're embedding some of the things that would have been an individual piece of technology. Just being one of those people that had one of those boards.
Right.
That was the technology.
That's great.
Now, you know, I would want to be doing it through different ways, and also letting the kids have the opportunity
Absolutely,
to
absolutely.
create things with their own technology, because they're going to know a lot more options than maybe we're even privy to at this point.
Oh, I completely
And I would
agree.
even say, like, for the, going back just to that professional development piece, you know, although there's these separate, you know, we're going to have TISs work on this specific skill, they're now working, it should go hand in hand. So it's not like this is time for technology learning, and then here's teaching. They go hand in hand at this point. So that was kind of the point of having the blended learning
Right.
group come in, and we've had certain schools have had specific PD around that, but having that blended learning course has really opened up a lot of eyes, and we've received a lot of great feedback from it.
So I think you're kind of answering my questions much more articulately than I asked them, which was, you know, that we have to accept that this is the reality of education, that technology is part of what we have to,
Right.
you know, include and budget for going forward. And then how do we do that, as I said, in a way that,
Yeah.
you know, keeps up, and, you know, makes us, you know, viable, you know, in terms of curriculum and everything else that you can do with it now.
I mean, one of the things you have to also keep in mind too is like when it comes to the textbooks, and I know a lot of people want them completely online, which is great, but they do come with a license. So
Right.
you have to be able to forecast out in 6 years when that license is not available anymore, do you have the money to support it? Where I
Exactly.
still have the book that I know is going to last for a certain amount of time. So there's that fine line of electronic access to books and their features to the actual textbook itself.
And the cost even with those can
But
vary
they-
quite a bit, you know.
They
you
can
can-
be the same as the
absolutely.
textbook.
Right, you're right, you can
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
$14 iBook, or you can pay $150 for a license for an AP chemistry,
Exactly.
you know, so it's not necessarily cheaper.
No,
Yeah.
no,
No.
but I think, you know, we have to keep on exploring these.
And I'm sure that will evolve too. because
Yes.
The companies will know.
No, just, oh, go ahead, Al.
I have a question, and it might be answered more easily by Linda. The iReady is really interesting to me. But short version, how does it work in the classroom? Because if you got 22 kids, you get 22 piles of data with correction. Yeah.
Well, it actually it does the correcting for you, so you're
I
not
know,
doing
but-
it. But if you're, so for example, what I would do is put my students into groups based on that iReady data. So rather than this whole group instruction piece, you would have students working in different areas of content, and you would be pulling your small group of people based on that iReady data to say, listen, I'm trying to close this gap here, I need to work with these students. However, there's also and Bill touched upon it, there's the piece where it has the intervention built into it. So you are that teacher saying, yes, I know it. I know that Jay needs some support with this. What am I going to do? There is a built-in building block to the system, so the student could be working on it individually, but the teacher will take that data and also make their groups together to work with students.
Now, is the total class presentation or work on top of that?
So, yeah, so you have it's basically, if you think about it, it's like helping you diagnose where students are and then giving you two options. One, putting them together as a group to be able to close that gap, depending on what it is, because it's not gonna be the same thing for each student.
Right.
And then there's the option of having the building block piece where it's an intervention in and of itself, so students could be working in a small group or individually to close that specific gap.
So,
This is also, I'll jump in for a second, sort of, it goes in line with the blended learning model that we're trying to teach teachers, which is, you know, a station rotation type of model. We want teachers to differentiate instruction for kids who have, like, you know, needs and things like that. So the program will actually categorize these children for you. It will line everyone up that have the same type of unique needs. So now the teacher doesn't have to think about that. They just say, give me these 6 kids, I'm gonna do small group instruction here. You guys are gonna work on this, and this group's gonna go on and do the intervention on some Chromebooks that I have in the back of the class. So we're rotating kids through these various stations, but addressing all of their issues at one time. But the program is really driving that rotation.
And how long do these tests take the kids?
So a typical test, and one testing period for like ELA would be about 60 minutes or so, you know, give or take. It's that elastic band, like you know, when it comes to lesson planning. Some students have finished in 45 minutes, some students have been more of an hour and a half.
3 times a year, correct?
3 times, so there's 3 benchmarks, so there's except for our kindergarten students, we only test them twice a year because they're just getting into school and we kind of have a good idea of where they're starting. So they do it 3 times a year. However, what Bill was saying is that the diagnostic will put them at the level where they need to be. So those diagnostic tests are important because otherwise you would just be getting 6th grade standard lessons if we didn't know where you were.
Any other questions?
No,
Question, but it's going to be addressed later, but I don't think Bill is going to be here for all of this, are you?
What's that?
Well, I have a question that's on the bottom of this stack, and we have to go through all of this to get there. So I was wondering if I could ask it now.
Is it related to technology?
Yes,
Sure.
it is. It has to do with the search functionality on the website that was removed. I was wondering when that's going to be put back.
So I've frequently heard you ask about this at other meetings, but I can't tell you that we've removed search functionality from the website. We haven't made any changes, with the exception of the template. So the outer look, the shell, if you will, of the website, but we haven't changed the actual functionality of the website.
Well,
So
I no longer can do a search, and it ate up a chunk of my day again today. I used to be able to go on and type in some words, and it would bring me to that, and I can't do that anymore. So I'm wondering how we can get that ability back. And I see something about surveys here and compare other cities. I just want what we had. And I know that we have used it for years, and it's gone.
the best I can tell you is I'll definitely follow up with Blackboard. They're the provider of
Okay.
that, that service for us. If they've changed something on their end that has changed the functionality that you were used to dealing with, maybe they can identify what that was and potentially put it back. And if not, we'll have to search for a workaround.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Maybe it would be good if you got together and,
I think he knows what's missing. I mean,
yeah, but does he know where your, where the roadblock is for you?
my roadblock is there used to be a search bar, and I used to be able to type words in that search bar and hit enter, and it would bring up the information that I want, and it's gone.
Well, the search bar, it just didn't go anywhere.
It doesn't, it's
The
useless.
search, no, the search bar is, it's now a magnifying glass
Right.
instead of a search bar.
Right.
So you hit the magnifying glass, you type in the words you want, and then it searches.
But it didn't go anywhere.
But it doesn't go anywhere. Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, let me look into it for you.
Okay, anybody else?
Sounded like it was theirs.
All right. Well, thank you for all your hard work and all your staff's hard work, and thanks for presenting all that information.
Thank you, appreciate it all.
Just as Bill's wrapping up, I did just want to make a couple points. I very much appreciate the work that Bill and his group have been doing. They're doing a ton of work. A couple of things that really jumped out to me is that the opportunity that we've received through that grant that Bill went after. To be able to go after and actually do the high school network itself would have taken up a complete year of our capital if we had to wait for the town for that, just because of the size. But to be able to do that and actually do the other two schools at the same time is incredible. The fact that they're actually going to upgrade 6 networks in one summer is going to be a crazy summer as far as the technology people in the district go, but the whole district is going to reap the rewards of that come September. So $633,000 for grant is a significant grant for us, for a district our size, and I want to thank Bill for going out and getting that. I think the number of Chromebooks that we've been able to actually put into the district this year, 1,000 devices to go up to 1,700, again, is significant. We talk about wanting more, and I think, when you receive eventually that report and recommendation on trying to move to more of a one-on-one initiative, it's just to keep up with the numbers, to keep additional devices coming into the district, and to be able to do it all at the same time, right? So that we can actually get, say 4 times the amount of devices in the district at one time, as opposed to every year just putting in a certain number. I think that that's going to be really exciting when we take a look at that over the course of this year. And I agree with Donna's point as far as we'll work on kind of presenting the next phase of the classroom technology and what that will look like as far as kind of pairing that out for capital, whether it's funded through town capital or it's funded through our own local budget. We'll kind of map that out for you so that you can see a look of where that's going. But it's also exciting for me as far as the security within the buildings and actually having the capacity within the internal networks to be able to add some additional security devices and cameras, I think is really going to set up very well for next year for us. So I do thank you, Bill, for you and your staff's time doing your work on this. Great.
Next presentation.
Next presentation, we'd love to have Nancy Antolini come up. Nancy came on board this past year as Director of School Nutrition. Nancy works with Joanna in the business office, so we'd love to welcome Nancy. We've asked Nancy to kind of, again, similar to Bill, do a year in review for us, and then talk a little bit about some of the changes she's recommending we implement for next year. So, Nancy, welcome, and
Thank you.
it's all yours.
Okay, so, thank you for having me tonight. This is the first time I'm meeting some of the school committee, so I appreciate that. I just want to go over so far what we have done as far as the reimbursable lunches served per day. We have 1,534 lunches on average that we serve throughout the 7 schools per day. That represents a 6.27% increase over 2016-17. So we were kind of really happy with that. Our participation rate across the whole district is 34%. So with doing surveys with other districts, we're average with the rest of the area. So our breakfast cost right now is $1.50 at Harrington and Chelmsford High School. And our lunch at the high school and the middle schools is at $3.10. Our elementary schools, $2.65, and we believe we'll stay at those costs for this coming year. Our professional development for the 2017-18 year, 6 of the staff members received their ServSafe certifications. All the leads in the 3 secondary schools attended 2 state conferences in management training. All staff received sanitation training. And the secondary level received training in Mediterranean cooking. The high school staff received in-house training in Mexican cuisine. Sorry. Our professional development for 2018-19 will begin in September with our ALICE training. And then we're keeping up with what's going on in the area and what's going on. OSHA is coming around to school districts, and some of the things they're asking for is for all staff to be trained in knife skills. That will be happening also September or October. We're, of course, trying to work on customer service, because that's the trend, really. Delivering exceptional customer service is one of our trainings. We've already asked for a visiting chef to come into the district and work with the staff on, having, and it really is, the kids even get very excited, the students get very excited about this when they see a visiting chef in. We did have a couple of those this year also, but this one is a professional chef coming in. And again, the leads will attend state conferences. So our accomplishments for 2017-18, I came in and my first goal was to develop some professional relationships with the staff and community. So I reached out and with the staff, who has been exceptionally welcoming, and it was a great year with the staff. In the community, every time that a parent had any question or anything, or I try to handle that myself instead of passing it off to the individual schools. So I got to hear from parents and know what they'd like to see and what they appreciate what's going on. I analyzed the needs of the school district to develop plans for meeting those needs, which we'll get into in a few minutes. I was appointed the professional development chair for the state of Massachusetts, so next year that will be an exciting role for me. I introduced new menu items because the trend is, of course, more, it's going back to more scratch cooking, which gets more participation, and it's a healthier form of cooking instead of the heat and serve. That which we did increased our meals served this year. I participated in the PTO meetings that I was invited into. The food service team served the field day for the first time in 10 years for the 4th grade at South Row. So we hope to increase that next year, serving all the schools. And that was in-house. And the food service team served the entire center school for their field day, which was the first time they've done that in a few years. So our future, which is exciting, I hope. We hope to stagger implementation of breakfast district-wide. Again, we are only right now serving breakfast at 2 of the schools, so we hope by the January would be a goal that we'd be serving all schools breakfast. The elementary schools would have breakfast in the classroom, and the 2 secondary middle schools who don't have any breakfast yet would be having satellite cots in the school, throughout the school. And again, with the high school, we do serve breakfast right now in the cafeteria, but again, we'd like to have a cot at some of the doors, so when they come in, we capture the students. So the future for lunch is beginning at the start of the 2018-19 school year, all elementary schools will have lunches prepared in-house. The lunches will be prepared with state-of-the-art equipment at the high school, and which we will be using as a commissary. our procurement for next year, we already have gone out to bid because we're, regulations, we have to have our bids in. So Mansfield Paper won the bid, was awarded the bid, and it will be a $25,000. Dairy, New England Ice Cream, that will include milk, which is a regulated item we can sell now. That will be $95,000. A grocery would be just, the grocery would be to Thurston. Instead of using Preferred Meals and Coster, it was awarded to one vendor with the collaborative that we belong to now, and that would be for $395,000. Again, that's eliminating other vendors. Water Polar for the vending machines that we have at the high school, $5,000. Bread was awarded to Fantini, and that is a $12,000 award. And our rollover with a Gill's Pizza for fresh pizza for the secondary levels is $32,610. So, as we were saying, that we would like to cook all in-house next year for all of the schools. So this is the estimated cost for the expansion, which Joanna will help me with.
I'll walk you through the expansion. Nancy did all the research, all the quotes, all the quantities, talking with the vendors. What do we need to serve the children, you know, with participation growing through the year? And this is some costs will be, you have to do right out the gate no matter how many children are going to be served. And then some things, you know, may have to grow, you know, depending on how our participation grows. So the top part of the screen is breakfast. So if we roll out breakfast to the middle school and the elementary schools, we'll need carts and then the cooler bags, and that would be $21,450. The next section of the chart is, I'm sorry, and that's just cold breakfast, like what the Harrington has today. Then if we want hot breakfast, that's kind of the left side, and you're still going to need this type of equipment, more refrigeration space, a blast chiller, these ovens, and then the sealing machine, that's like what will put all the food in a little tray and then be delivered to the schools. And then we've also added the van to bring the meals around. Then to the right is to do lunch. We'd need a little more refrigeration space and a couple more ovens. So the grand total of breakfast and lunch, kitchen equipment, and the van is $156,505, the one-time cost. That's in the far right, kind of bottom right corner. Down below, just kind of, this is the labor cost we know will increase because we'll need a couple more part-time people to help pull all this together at the commissary. And that we believe to be $21,481. So top part, equipment in a van, bottom part, just estimated labor. And then just a little note about participation. Right now, the Harrington as our model, we have 13% participation in breakfast. We'd want to bring that to 20% within the first year. Any questions on the dollars of the cost for the equipment, the van, labor?
No,
I
we've been
can-
talking about doing this kind of updates for years, so it's nice to see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have suffered through some awful meals. So it is so nice to see it being brought back in-house and
Thank
cooked
you,
from
I'm very
scratch.
excited.
Is that the main reason for doing it, the quality of the meals, or is it going to be cost savings in the long run, or?
It'll be definitely, there's a cost savings there, but it would be bring in quality meals. It was quality before, but, you know, I think that at the beginning, that was just supposed to be a fix for 3 years, from what
Yeah,
I understand,
exactly.
so it's been 10.
Yeah.
Just big picture from my perspective. One of the things that we've been dealing with, we know we have a pretty significant, capital plan and some significant capital needs in the district as far as costs are concerned. When we even had our facility assessment and they looked at the cost of upgrading each individual kitchen in the elementary and middle schools and the high school to some extent, the cost was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases per building. So I think that has kind of been an issue that we've just been, this has been kind of on the back burner for a number of years because we haven't had realistically the money to really be able to invest and do that. So when we're talking with Joanna and Nancy about what are some alternatives, if we're not going to have that capacity and that capital right now to do this, but we want to try to get away from the preferred meals and do it ourselves, what are some other options? So I do credit, Nancy and Joanna for coming up with this. But they said basically we actually have some unused space in the high school kitchen that there's some obsolete equipment, if we got rid of, would open up some space to be able to put some new equipment in. And we could actually, cook with our own staff our meals at the high school and then basically distribute them out to the 4 elementary schools. That could be for breakfast and for lunch. And again, that's what some of this different equipment is for. And I do think there is some upfront cost. That's why we want to talk about that and even how to potentially fund that. But then in the long run, when we're looking at having a little bit more control of a product and menu and quality, we'd obviously have that by bringing this back in-house. So this is still not cooking scratch in each of the 4 elementary school kitchens. That, could be a longer-term plan and a longer-term goal we can continue to look at. But I think this is a very nice solution for a short-term, a shorter-term solution for bringing, again, back some control, bringing back, getting away from the preferred meals, doing it ourselves, and being able to have a little bit better quality. And then really, once you make this investment in equipment cost, I think in year 2, you'll see the per-meal cost go down pretty drastically. So I think it was a well-thought-out idea. I think it was creative. I think it actually goes a long way. It's going to be a lot of work. So we did have that discussion, too, that, if we do this, we're taking a lot of onus on us as opposed to just contracting with a third party to provide the product. We've got to get staff motivated. Nancy's obviously got to work really hard this summer to come up with menus and whatnot, but it seemed like this was really a nice opportunity. It's some nice middle ground as opposed to waiting for, the permanent capacity within the buildings. And quite honestly, the other thing is this might be more cost-effective than actually outfitting for schools with brand-new kitchens and a staff to cook from scratch in each of the kitchens, just given our numbers. So I think it's really a nice solution. I certainly support doing this. I again, commend Joanna and Nancy for bringing this forward. And, if there's any more questions, we can certainly address them and then talk a little bit about the funding strategy that I'd propose.
How will the meals be transported?
In the van. So there would be we purchased a vehicle that would be dedicated to this particular program. Nancy's actually spec'd it out, and some of the other food programs in the area have them, like a Ford Transit type van, but that would actually have like cooling and stuff like that built into it. So the high school would produce the meals, they'd be packaged, sent up, and then delivered out to the schools.
Do you make reservations in advance, or can we just show up?
I hope so.
Yeah, Donna first, maybe, then you?
Yeah, let me just raise my hand.
Go ahead.
I'm in the queue. No, you go ahead, I'm in the queue.
So I have a couple questions. First of all, when my kids were in school, we had the meals prepared in the elementary school. And I think that the cafeteria staff and that whole process was a very important part of the culture of the school. And, it's something that I miss, to be perfectly honest with you. But that being said, with only 34% participation district-wide, what do we need to do to increase? Do you think that this is going to help increase that number? Because that's pretty low for.
Better food.
I don't disagree with that, but, it's low.
Yeah.
34% is low. So, I am concerned, maybe it will bring up the numbers, and I certainly hope it does, but, is 34%, does that warrant, this investment of money?
I personally think it does. I think the other thing is 34% is low compared to what I'm used to, too, coming from more of an urban district where your numbers are in the 70s or 80s. But I don't think 34% is that out of the norm for more districts of a similar kind of size and demographic that we have here. I think particularly at the elementary level, I'm going to be quite honest, I don't know how attractive the preferred meals are. I think by having some of our own meals and them being produced by our people, and even having our staff at the schools at the elementary level, once they get there, they're going to have a bigger role in actually, kind of plating and presentation and whatnot than they have now, as opposed to what they're serving. So I do think you'll probably see some kind of an increase. I also think you have seen an increase last year over this year,
Yes.
just with some of the work that Nancy has done as far as the menu options. I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you, when I go to the middle schools. I don't spend a lot of time in the high school kitchen, but at the two middle school kitchens when I'm there, with the meals that they're serving. So, there's certainly room for growth, but I think we actually saw some really good growth this year, and it will only go up next if we have the other. I think a real huge opportunity is breakfast, and that isn't something that we really have emphasized.
Yes.
But we've seen at the Harrington School, the breakfast in the classroom has actually gone very well. I think, we can kind of come out with a whole marketing campaign on this, particularly where it's going to be all schools next year as we phase it in over the fall, that we'll be able to come up with a strategy to really kind of push and market the breakfast program at the elementary, the middle, and the high school level. One of the things that I do think you'll see a big increase in is at the middle school and the high school level, if they move to more of a kiosk-type offering, where kids don't actually have to go to the cafeteria and get a meal and sit down.
Right.
We've seen that to be very successful in districts where you have kind of the carts where kids
Yes.
can come by and pick up something.
And
So
I completely agree with that. Being
Right.
familiar with the carts, they walk in the door, they pick up,
grab and go, just kind
right,
of goes much
exactly,
quicker
and then
than
they head off.
the sit down.
And
So I think
yeah, that's been very, very successful.
that you'll see at the middle schools and the high school.
Yeah.
Next year, we haven't had that. So that's also going to help with the increase the numbers.
And then, this is kind of an offshoot of this whole thing is, as we go forward, I think that one of the things that we have to be, because I read this in your memo about the negative balances and things like that, is I think that we have to be very clear around what the policies are, around what happens when you don't bring a lunch, because no kid's going to go hungry. We know this. But, exactly what is going to be provided for them, because we've had questions in the past and concerns about, if students want water, why are they being denied water, that kind of thing. And I don't really think that's the case, but I think that if we had some clearer understanding of what the procedures are, for if your child forgets his lunch or, is over what is available to them, then I think that might help parents to feel a little bit better and understand, that no one's going hungry or thirsty.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that also communication with the staff, I think sometimes that
Yes,
confusion
yeah.
is right there, and staff make decisions that aren't in the best interest of the child standing in front of them, and they need to be more aware or educated. I don't know what the training is, but that's a lot. I mean, I hear that from parents. I'm sure you do too.
Yes. So it's just something to think about in terms of, you talked about customer service and improving the quality of communication and things. And I think this is a great opportunity for us, to address some of these issues head on, about just saying to parents, okay, if your child forgets at lunch, or if you're over your limit, this is what the next steps are. This is what your child can do. Those kinds of things I think would be very helpful.
We actually we were planning on putting out a cover letter, kind of to introduce myself now that I've had my feet wet, and, to explain how it does work, because I've had many conversations with parents about the water issue especially, and why we can't give water. We do follow certain regulations and all, so I have had that. So to put in writing maybe on our website,
Yeah,
how
or
it
maybe
really
frequently
works.
asked questions.
Right,
that kind of
that's a
things.
good way to word it.
But you have also done a phenomenal job. I've been at a couple of PTO meetings when you've been at the Wellness Committee. So Nancy has been hitting everybody and doing a great job in her presentations.
Thank you.
Linda, you have a question?
Just a couple things, just to piggyback what you were talking about, that once those meals go in, because being a former staff member, don't underestimate the teachers going in. Like, we knew it was the turkey dinner, and we'd sit with the students, so they have a better understanding of what's happening. You may not be seeing as many staff members because of the preparation of the meals, but they would go in and make specialized food, like, oh, I know you can have this and this, so I think you'll see that increase and that staff. But what I was originally gonna say is, you know, Nancy's one of those unsung hero kind of people, so this is her first year. Not only do I tell her, like, 2 days beforehand of, like, all these things I need, he's like, no problem. All she ever says is, no problem, and it's wonderful. I can't thank you enough for that. The other part is she, and I've seen this in action with the work being done at the high school and then brought to another school. When we do our NPEN group, she's fed over 600 educators at Chelmsford High School and then at the McCarthy School, which was her satellite school. I went into the kitchen, she had everything going, and it was there right on time, so that's a lot of people to feed, a lot of hungry educators, and everybody said that the food is fantastic and the price is, you know, just right. So thank you very much, and thank you for putting up with me. It's his fault.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
No, I don't know, maybe if we could just kind of talk about the funding recommendation.
You wanted to go right into
Yeah,
that?
because it's kind of the next item anyway, but if you don't mind staying, Nancy. So within the food service revolving fund, we, at the end of last year, I think had a balance of approximately $300,000, and we're still trending very well for this year. So there'll be some additional money at year end that'll probably increase that balance. You know, as I've reported previously from the reports that we've given from Joanna, we actually have a surplus this year. We're in very good financial shape for the end of the year. I would like to recommend that we actually utilize some local fund instead of the food service revolving fund to be able to pay for a portion, or $120,000 of the $150,000 that we're going to need, to not really take the money from the milk and lunch account, to allow that to basically keep a balance as we implement this program. If there ends up being additional things that we need, or if it requires more labor than we need, I don't want to, although it would be allowable to take it totally out of the milk and lunch account, I don't want to totally deplete that account and then be scrambling to have to replenish it, you know, at a future time. So we actually do have a very positive balance locally. That's what I would recommend doing, is basically taking $120,000 of the $150 and using it as an offset to the local budget. Now, what I want to explain so it's clear for you. Under normal circumstances, say you approve that, we could technically allocate money within the local budget. We could do a transfer to a line and then just make these equipment purchases right out of the local budget and a piece right out of the milk and lunch account. But because of the timing, and talking with Joanna, because of the timing of the fiscal year, you really want to have all of your, you know, services rendered and products you're going to purchase on hand by June 30th. We would not physically have enough time to cut a purchase order out of the fiscal 18 budget to be able to pay for funds to have, say, the vehicle or the equipment at the high school installed by Friday. It's not likely. And we want to isolate this expense to fiscal 18. So basically what we're recommending doing are taking some charges, $120,000 worth of charges that occurred this year to the milk and lunch account, and basically transferring those charges to the local operating budget. So it decreases your available budget in the local operating budget and increases your available fund within the milk and lunch account. The milk and lunch account doesn't have a fiscal year because it's a revolving fund, so we can technically start that purchase now, and it doesn't matter if the you know, the money is liquidated or the project is on hand by July 1st, by June 30th, we can have it kind of straddle the 2 fiscal years. So technically, it's an expense transfer, moving an expense from the milk and lunch account to the local budget, which then increases your available balance in the milk and lunch account, so that the $150,000 worth of product or purchases will all happen to the milk and lunch account. That'll also help us for future years as far as tracking the expense. So if we ever say, well, what year was it that we went back and bought the vehicle or the ovens or whatnot, it'll all be charged to the milk and lunch account. You won't have a piece of the expense in the operating budget and then a piece of expense in the milk and lunch account. You're certainly welcome to add in, Joanne, if you want to, but I just wanted to kind of give you that frame of why this recommendation is before you and the way it is this evening. This isn't a normal transfer that you would see because you've got a revolving fund included within a local operating budget fund. But that would be my recommendation, to be able to do this, to really do it properly so that the whole fund can be charged to milk and lunch, to not totally deplete the milk and lunch account, but allow them to have that operating surplus as they get this program going for next year.
Questions?
Do you want a motion?
Oh,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, just, so just bear with me here for a second. Because it really does, it has as much to do with food service, but as it does with some of the other things that we've been talking about tonight, which is spending a whole heck of a lot of money, okay? And so, one of the things I want to make sure that people are clear on is that it's not so much spending as it is an investment that will, what we're anticipating is that somewhere down the road that this is going to end up saving us money.
Correct.
Okay, all right, just so we're clear on that. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
we're not spending money just to spend money.
Well, and that's what I think I really want to make sure that we're emphasizing to people, because I think that sometimes it says, well, you know, you've got all of this money, my taxes are going up, and you're spending, and so,
Right.
you know.
But you're gonna get really two things out of this.
Yes.
You're gonna get, you're basically financing a purchase, right? It's a
Correct.
one-time kind of capital
Right.
purchase you're gonna finance, that this equipment is gonna have a life expectancy of 5 to 10 years,
Right.
right? But you
Right.
have to pay for it
Right.
up front. We're not gonna get into like a bonding issue over something like
Right,
this. You have to
exactly.
do that. But you're also gonna improve your quality and the product that you're providing the students and the staff.
Well,
So
and I
that's the other
understand
piece of that.
And I really do understand that, but I just want to make sure, you know, that we're clear about that, you know, as a committee and as, you know, administratively, you know, where we're going,
Sure.
what the long-term plan is, that it's not just a, you know, as you said, spending money in this,
Right.
at this particular time, but that there's a plan, because I don't think we talk enough about that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
where are we going, and, you know, what is the end result going to be?
Sure.
And I think that the more that we can do that, I think that the more people are going to feel comfortable with the decisions that we make around spending. So it's a little left turn from what we're talking about, but not really, because, you know, as I said, we're talking about, you know, $120,000.
Right.
So, I
It's-
just think it's something that we have to be
It's
mindful of.
significant. I hope
Yeah.
you don't think I'm minimizing that in
Not
any
at
way.
all, no. I'm just saying that I think that it's something that we hear quite a bit.
Right.
Okay, you know, about, you know, the amount of money, you know, that we receive, you know, each year, and, you know, how is it being spent? And as I said, I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we're careful about how we spend our money, but also to be able to help people understand where are we going with this?
Right.
Like, what is the long-term plan?
Okay.
And how this is actually going to benefit people, as opposed to just, you know, spending money. Help me. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Okay,
I want to wait for my comment till there's a motion on the floor, but I'm going to follow up and hit it out.
okay.
I move that we move money from general supplies and instructional professional and support staff labor savings to offset $120,000 of the food service labor costs.
Second.
Is that correct?
Yes, just as outlined in the memo, if you want, just because, yeah, that's fine.
Second.
Because the account numbers are in there.
All right, so I want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Questions?
I have a comment why I'm going to be voting for this. I think as Nancy stated, and it's been probably 9 or 10 years that we veered off that path. And I remember very clearly the cost of the equipment, and it came down to that cost. We just literally could not afford it. So we had to make some difficult decisions. But I think this gets us back to on the right path in a very cost-effective way. So we're getting closer to our goal of bringing the food services back to what they were, providing a quality product and getting in the newer equipment. So I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Other questions?
No.
My question is, I mean, this obviously covers all the equipment, additional labor costs that would go into,
The milk and lunch account.
okay,
It would just be handled through that.
okay.
Yeah, this is just really for the capital
Yep.
costs associated with
Right.
it, and that's where the fiscal year kind of comes in. That's why we want to try to capture some of that savings in 18 and be able to apply it towards that piece.
Okay, any other questions? We have to do roll call vote, I
This would be a
assume?
roll call vote.
Okay, Barbara?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Aye, 0.
All right, you got some work to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Looking forward to it.
And thank you for your presentation.
Next,
Right.
special ed transportation?
Yes, Joanna, do you want to walk us through the sped?
So this past spring, we met with two other districts, Billerica and Tewksbury, to take a look. We currently have a special ed out-of-district transportation contract that expires June 30th, and said, what are our plans for the next 3 to 5 years? So we all got our data together on our students and put together a request for proposal. And 4 transportation providers came April 3rd to review the proposal. Then they received the documents a couple days later, electronically. April 20th was the deadline for to receive the proposals. Of the 4, one of the providers submitted a proposal, and that was Trombley. And they were the one and only successful proposer. We asked the legal counsel to draft the contract, which is in your packet. And we're asking you this evening to enter into a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th and 5th year extension. And the 3-year contract would begin July 1st, 2018, and end June 30th, 2021. You'll see in the contract, the rate per bus stayed the same as our current contract, which was a pretty significant.
So the maintained rate will go through the 3 years, or is there a built-in increase?
No, it's a flat contract proposal. So under the Mass General laws, special education transportation contracts don't need to be publicly bid. They can technically just be negotiated. So we did invite, as Joanna indicated, 4 different companies to come in, though, talk to them with the other 2 school districts about what our needs were, and we asked them to submit proposals to us. Only one did submit. It is Trombley, who happens to be our current provider. And we originally asked for just a 3-year proposal, but they actually responded to all 3 districts and gave a 5-year proposal. So 2 of our communities could actually accept a 5-year contract if we wanted to. One of them can't without getting town meeting approval. So we decided, because this collaborative model is actually working pretty well for us, that we didn't want to have one district be off cycle. But Trombley actually provided, it's on page 72 if you're looking at the electronic packet, or it's page 3 of their actual cost proposal. It's, Barbara, it's before the buses, so it'd be going the other way. It's page 3 after their cover page. There's a little grid that shows the pricing. But they basically kept the flat rate of $223 per day per vehicle, which is the rate that we're currently paying in our current contract. And they are going to provide that contract for technically 5 years. So what we're recommending is you enter into a 3-year contract. You have the sole discretion, if you want to exercise an optional year 4th and 5th when we get there. There was no sense in not including that in the contract, because, again, it's a flat rate. And I think anytime you can negotiate or get a contract where you're paying the same costs for the next 5 years that you're currently paying in this fiscal year, it's a good deal for yourself and for the community. So I think that's actually it's a good thing. But that's what's before you this evening.
What's the feedback from parents on the services? Have we had a lot of complaints
Do we have a
about
performance review or something?
There's no formalized performance review. I mean, oftentimes, quite honestly, it's just, do people complain or not? There have been complaints over the course of the last 3 years. Nothing is perfect as far as things are concerned. I'm more concerned with, if there is ever a complaint, how does the company remedy it? And does the issue continue to happen even after it's trying to be remedied? Again, this is not a perfect world. There are certainly situations where I think dealing with some of the complaints, we would like the company to be more responsive, to actually make a correction and then stick to it. So there's a lot of contract administration on our end that we really have to kind of hold the contractor responsible. We did, within this contract document, which we didn't previously have, we've had some penalties built in for non-performance, that we haven't kind of had a stick in the past to be able to do anything. I will be quite honest with you, though, too, when you only have one vendor in the area who's bidding on a contract, you don't have a lot of other options. So we are trying to really kind of build a relationship with this company so that they are responsive if we have issues. Trombley is a subsidiary of North Reading, our big bus contractor, and they are a bit of a monopoly in the area when it comes to companies. But what's that?
It makes it a little bit of a problem.
Well, it is,
Yeah.
because you don't really have other avenues to go.
Right.
So it's something we have to work on. Again, it's the relationship piece, I think it's important. The customer service piece and stressing that. Again, I think we actually took the onus, Chelmsford this time around, of having our attorneys prepare the contract. Different districts have done it in the past, but we actually took the lead on it. And again, we have some clauses in there that would allow us to either not pay or assess penalties if there are issues that happen. And a lot of this is really going to fall on us as far as the contract administration piece. But again, I do think they provide a good service, and with one bidder, it's not like you have options in front of you either, in all reality.
What reason do you think the other three don't submit bids, or didn't submit bids?
One of them, CTI, is just too small. I think they basically said that they could be a backup provider, or, some of them also, some of these companies might have looked to see, like, would we want to split the contract? Would we want to have them bid on specific runs and things? We were really looking to work with one company to be all-inclusive. And to be honest with you, we're pooling resources, and we're actually this is our out-of-district, this is an in-district. So we might have a child from Berwick, or a child from Tewksbury, and a child from, either Lowell or Chelmsford, whatever. We're getting a group rate, so we're all splitting that $223 per bus. So if we have a child that's going to Perkins School, or is going to Landmark or something like that, if we have one kid on a bus, we're paying $223. But if we can also, Landmark's kind of far away, if we end up having a Lowell kid, or a Billerica kid, or now even a Drake child, because they're involved in this with this company as well, our rate can drop, to a half or even a quarter if it's a split rate. But so CTI was not large enough. One of the other companies, Vanpool, doesn't really have a big service in this particular area. They're a little bit bigger in the southern part of the state. I think oftentimes, too, the companies try to keep each other honest, and, they might go out and actually just kind of see what's there. But I don't think they had a big enough pool in this area to do it. There'll also, a lot of these bids come up at the same time. So a lot of the companies will say, well, I'll invest in Chelmsford if I can also pull off, say, the Drake or the Burlington or someone like that bid. But as the bids start being awarded, and one particular vendor is kind of receiving a majority of them, it doesn't make sense for Vanpool to move up in this area and really establish roots. Pride Sow was the fourth company, and they, in the end, just thought that the timing was a little bit too difficult for them. They're actually now, they took over the Lowell contract for in-district just in February, and that's a big ramp-up for them. This is their first contract. I wouldn't doubt if they would be on the scene in future years or in future contracts, but right now, I think they had to come up quickly and add like 60 to 70 vehicles. And I think the timing to try to get summer runs and September runs in play was just a little bit too quick for them. So they again did express interest in the future. If we had an opening, they'd be interested. This cycle just was a little quick for them.
I'm glad we've introduced the penalties. I think that's important in terms of holding them a little bit more accountable.
Yep.
Is this particular transportation overseen by our transportation coordinator or special education?
It's a little of both. Do you want to speak to it, or do you want me to?
It'll start with, in our regular transportation department, and then, depending on what it is, Amy gets involved, and, because she has the relationship with the parent,
Right.
and
And IEP requirements?
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yeah, like the special education, the out-of-district chair,
Right.
if they're involved in a meeting that's going to require a placement,
Right.
like they will be involved early on and kind of getting the transportation set up. But then like Peter in our office might field a complaint or concern or things like that.
Could Peter send out a survey at the end of the year to parents whose children receive specialized transportation to see how they felt that the service went?
Good.
I'm just, I mean, because rather than taking a look at, incident by incident, I think
Right.
if we can capture some themes at the end of the year to be able to pass that on to the transportation company, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, we
Would it-
can look at that.
Would it be safe to say that parents should always start by calling Peter?
In a perfect world, yes, because then you would have like one point of complaint or you're registering a complaint. But in some of these situations, if someone has a complaint, oftentimes they're just reaching out to who they have a contact with.
Okay.
They might call the company, they might, a lot of these cases are individualized. They may know the driver, but Peter's certainly a good starting point.
Right.
Because then we can document the call.
I'd like to try and,
That, exactly.
funneling this information to Peter so that way we, like I said, we're picking up on these themes and it's not just,
Right.
this solution patches all
Exactly.
over the place
Right.
where,
Well, I agree with you. It's just sometimes, like, parents will call me if they're,
I
if they're
agree,
angry with the
yeah.
way something goes. So I have, we always kind of shuffle them back to Peter as a start.
Okay.
But just given, like, the situation and the circumstances, it's almost like all hands on deck to try to get through that one issue. And then you
Absolutely.
step back and kind of figure out, what could have been done differently, or how ideally would someone have responded in that particular situation.
And so that's kind of one of the reasons, too, I wanted to do a survey at the end of the year, is maybe make Peter more the face of transportation and transportation concerns, but also anything that he may have missed throughout the course of the year, it may be picked up in that survey so that he'll become aware of it as well.
Sure. Well, one of the other elements that we are going to now have, because now we have 2 years of data, is even that the online where people can kind of register a complaint or a concern, we actually now have that data, so that we can actually go through and actually see, like, how much of it is, bus is running a little late compared to I don't like my bus stop, or I have a problem with the driver, or things like that. So we actually do have some data we can look at. Whether 100% of the complaints were actually entered into that system or not, is questionable, but we've never even had a data point in the past to be able to look at. So like this summer, when it's quiet, we can actually look at that a little bit.
And then having been involved with CPAC, I know that one of the concerns with the specialized transportation is snow days and cancellation policies. And, if, Chelmsford cancels, but the school, of the town
Right.
doesn't, are they going to be provided with transportation and those kinds of things? So I think that these were some questions that came up, so I think anything that we can do to iron that out early on would be good.
Yeah, we can, to your point earlier, we could probably do like an FAQ or something on those kind of things.
Yep.
Yeah, I can work on that.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
We would need a motion. I think I worded it, did I? In the paragraph for you?
It's pretty close. I move to approve the out-of-district special education student transportation contract between the Chelmsford Public School District and Twombly Motor Coach Service Incorporated as presented.
Second.
That'll work.
Good.
Sounded good. Any further questions or discussion? Do roll call, or we have to
No, it's a roll
roll
call.
call again? Okay, Barbara?
Aye.
Al?
All right.
Donna?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0.
All right, so I do have 3 copies of the contract here. They're flagged for your signature with your name next to it. If we can pass these around, can you please use a blue pen?
Not red.
No red pencils.
Pencils?
No pencils. If you can use my blue pen, that'd be perfect. It's just easier for the color scan. Okay. Do you mind if I move on?
Yep, no,
Okay.
I'll just-
So next item before you this evening, when we met at the last school committee meeting on June 5th, we presented some transfers that were just detailing some of the activity that took place after the budget was finalized. So that was kind of the movement of the staff between the that line item we had in the budget for the therapeutic program and the actual lines that they were going to be in. Joanna had pointed to a small offset in savings in the athletic insurance account. We talked about that curriculum adoption transfer, that Edgenuity program. So we went back and incorporated all of those line item changes into the actual budget document, and would like you to vote that this evening, because that's the most current budget that we would actually load into Munis to begin fiscal 19, just so that we have clean balances. If you recall, the bottom line of the budget has not changed. It's still $59 million, so that's not going to change. but on page 19 of the budget, those are the kind of macro level DESI accounts that you are technically approving us to work within. And then we would bring forward transfers if we need to move money from one account to another. So page 19 has been updated to reflect all of these changes. So again, I just laid out a recommended motion for you to approve that. It's at the bottom of my my memo.
I recommend the Chelmsford School Committee vote to approve the revised fiscal year 19 local operating budget for the Chelmsford Public Schools totaling $59 million as presented, and further vote to approve the summary level distribution of the fiscal year 19 local operating budget as outlined on page 19 of the approved fiscal year 19 budget.
Second.
Any questions, discussions?
The special ed expenditures, are they for the new classroom at the South Row?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last meeting we talked about.
It was the staffing model, we talked about the BCBA.
I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Yeah, no, I know, but it was the
Yeah,
BCBA and.
How many
the,
students do we project to be in that classroom?
It's gonna be 2 classrooms, actually.
It's two multi-age classrooms, probably like a K2 and a 2-4. I don't know if there's an actual number to start the year in either classroom. I would estimate anywhere between 4 and 6,
Small.
4 and 7 kids per classroom. It's gonna ebb and flow too, depending
Yeah.
on entry and need and things along those lines.
You're also limited by the law about how many you can put in there anyway. so-
Right, right, but we're not gonna even approach the law. No, because,
Hope not.
huh?
I said, hope not.
No, but those, these are really going to be some specialized rooms with some students with some, pretty significant needs. We want to help them get back on track and hopefully be able to come back into their home schools. But, so I would guess, 4 to 6, 4 to 7, something along those lines. But certainly, we're going to conform to the DESI guidelines.
Have we begun the hiring process yet for these people?
We have. We actually have had interviews and recommendations for hire have been submitted down to the HR office. So offers are currently being made. We're waiting to see if people are going to accept offers and whatnot. But when we meet in July, I can actually give you an update if you'd like on where we stand with the hiring.
Any other questions on the finalized budget? Okay, if not, Barbara? You want to vote on it?
Oh,
It's a
aye.
roll call, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0.
Thank you. Next item this evening is the personnel report. Again, this is just a monthly report of activity for the month of May. For all of the hires, the resignations, we didn't happen to have any retirements or assignment changes in May. But just a detailed list of the comings and goings in the district over the course of May. No particular actions required on the behalf of the committee, just presenting it as information. Happy to answer any questions. No questions? Moving on, item 7 on the agenda this evening is a request that comes from our Community Education Office. ComEd is looking to kind of repurpose and redesign the Adult Education Coordinator position there. So Robin Adams, who's our new director, had sent over a rationale with some of the adjustments they'd like to make to the job description. I thought one of the easiest things to kind of track would be to just show you the track changes, functionality, so you can see what they're adding and deleting from the job description. And then, because that actually is, after you look at it for a while, a little difficult to read, the last thing is the actual revised job description. But Robin feels, given the staffing at the ComEd office, this particular position needed to have some duties and responsibilities redefined and updated with the times to complement the new individual who got hired to take her position when she moved up to be the director. So we would recommend you approve this revised job description so that they can advertise that and move forward with the updating of the job description.
On qualification number 2,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, I guess you could say that, I was going to say such as opposed to including MS Word, Excel, and Google Drive.
Uh-huh.
I think those are pretty standard, but it gives you the flexibility of someone who may be qualified in other areas, who may not be as qualified in that area. Do you know what I'm saying? To you're not locking someone in or locking someone out just because they don't necessarily have those.
You're not locking them out, but
Okay.
you'd really want them to be pretty
I agree.
proficient in
Yeah,
those
with
these
those,
days.
yes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, I noticed that they took out program advertisement and marketing experience plus. So are you saying that that's something that you definitely want to have? And if someone doesn't, would they be not qualified or not a good viable candidate for this job?
Were you seeing that?
That is.
Number 3.
Qualification number 3.
They took out A+ at the end of the sentence, so it makes it look like it's more of a requirement
Right.
rather than
Yeah, well, that was
an
gonna be,
advantage.
that was gonna be one of the purpose, because that is the marketing piece for
Okay.
that. So they want someone that has that qualification.
Okay.
Okay, my favorite one is number 6.
Can we just stay on 3 for 1 second? Yeah, they don't want it to be like an and/or anymore.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Because if you have a good candidate, as I said, who comes in and they don't necessarily have that experience, but they're really great in other areas,
Right.
you know, I don't want to eliminate them from the pool necessarily, especially if they are a good learner and, you know, can pick up these things really quickly. But if that's something you want, then that's something you should have.
I mean, I think that's just natural with any job description. If you ever went back and reread some of the job descriptions you probably applied for, you may have been missing a piece.
Oh, I was missing
And-
a lot.
Well, yeah, we were gonna talk to you about that later, but, so we find that if they're really strong in all these categories, and that's something that they would need a little bit of support in, but I do
Okay.
know that one of the biggest things for ComEd is that marketing piece and
They're
making
looking to
sure that
push
they
that.
have that
I-
desktop publisher.
understand.
I
And
think
that they
what-
can really get that information out, because that's it. If you don't have that information out, then you don't have
Same.
Yeah.
a
I think what they've tried to do too is within 1 through
Thank you.
8, kind of pull out some of those, and/ors, and number 9 is kind of all encompassing, where it says, alternatives to the above qualifications, as may be found appropriate and acceptable. So,
Right, yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just looking at this and I'm saying, okay, is this, are we locking ourselves in too much? And are we giving ourselves some flexibility?
I
in
think
terms
you
of-
are by having number 9 on there.
Okay.
Because you'd be able to allow the director, if they're doing the hiring,
Okay.
to substitute, if someone doesn't have marketing experience, but they have some other trait that they can bring to the job,
Okay.
and the director can validate that and really make an argument that
Okay.
should be looked at,
All right.
then you're giving them that leeway.
Great, thank you.
Just a general question, I probably should know this. How does community ed fall under the umbrella of the school committee?
It's really it's an operating program of the school department. I don't know the history, quite honestly, but community education, it's my understanding, has always been a program of the Chelmsford Public Schools. So the director of community education, even though they operate with a revolving fund,
Yeah,
you can
that's
almost
why I
think
asked,
of it
yeah.
similar to like Nancy in the food services,
Yeah.
where she's got a revolving fund that pays for all of her staff and things like that. All of the community ed staff are technically non-exempt, they're not part of a collective bargaining agreement. They don't fall within a union or whatnot, but they still operate under the auspices of the Chelmsford Public Schools. They follow our policies and procedures and things like that. And it's a program of the schools.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're almost an
their
extension of
director,
the schools, if you think about it, right? So they're providing the before and after-school care, they're providing like the Summer Fest, which is something that a lot of parents use for, whether it's daycare or providing an opportunity for students. I think it gets confusing because there's still the adult community ed, but they are part of the community, so they're offering out to our parents, to our community members. So I think that's where it gets a little funky, is the adult
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
it, but the
And
rest of the stuff is
And
all.
they're kind of self-sustaining.
Right, so they have the
Self-sustaining,
Lions
right, yeah.
Pride, they have
Yeah.
everything that
Right.
offered for parents.
Right. We sign warrants for their
You
things,
do.
but they get their own money, yeah. That confused me.
but think of it either like a grant,
Yeah.
like that was, if it was a grant of the school department that
Yeah.
they were operating under, or if it was a revolving fund that they were operating under, they still fall under your charge or your control.
Can we remove in number 6 the word cheerfully? Ability to cheerfully multitask. You can't just multitask, you have to do
You
it
have to
with
be
a
cheerful,
smile.
Barbara.
I just can't
I think
multitask.
That's ridiculous.
What's
That
that?
needs to come out.
I'm cheerful, but I can't multitask.
Then you might not be the right person for that job.
I think that's
I
a
am-
judgment that the interviewer will have to make
Right,
on the
yeah.
spot,
Right.
and whether or not they're having the wool pulled over their eyes or not.
Do we need a motion to approve this, or do we?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve. I think I laid it out for you. in the first memo.
So, would it
Yeah,
be
seeking
one
the school
motion or
committee's,
two to-
no, school committee's approval to accept the updated job description with the revised and recommended requirements and duties as outlined. It's the last paragraph.
And permission to post?
Yeah, by doing that, we would then post the
Okay.
job, yep.
Incorporating the suggested changes,
Which changes?
taking out cheerfully, and then Donna had a change on the.
No, actually, they resolved it with number 9.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is saying 9, that gives
Okay.
the person some flexibility.
All right,
So take
taking
off
out
that day.
cheerfully then, because that's,
You want to remove the word cheerfully?
yes.
We need a motion to remove the word cheerfully.
I would make the motion to remove the word cheerfully from number 6 in the qualifications.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. We still have the motion.
So now we need the main motion, I think.
Yeah.
It's just the bottom of that first
It's
page.
at the bottom of the first page, yeah.
Right, the last paragraph, last sentence.
I move the school committee approve the updated job description with the revised and recommended requirements and duties as outlined for the adult education coordinator.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you. Can I get my pen back?
Somewhere over there.
You can throw it. I just had to make a note to myself.
I thought you wanted a pen there.
Next item in the evening, we had talked a little bit last meeting about scheduling the capital plan reviews. I had a conversation with the chair about doing this as the facility subcommittee, and we had done a little doodle pool, is that what it's called? A doodle poll to figure out members' availability. And it looks like Friday, July 6th and Thursday, July 10th would work at 9 a.m. For the facility subcommittee members, so.
Yeah, it just wasn't gonna work out that everybody could make it, so it wasn't gonna fit everybody's schedule, so it's just, we do have a facility subcommittee, it's Donna and it's John. Those 2 dates happen to work for them. So we'll start with those 2 dates. If we find we need more time, we can always, add more time. It is an open meeting, so if anybody else wants to come, if you have the time and wanna come, same thing, general public can come if anybody would like to attend. We also talked about perhaps inviting other stakeholders, so
Yep.
building principals, facilities, people in town, town manager, as Donna suggested, if they want to attend those meetings too, and just, hear what we're going over at those times. And again, if we need more time, we'll take more time, but at least to get the
That's a good
ball
start.
rolling. Yeah.
Yep, good start for it.
And then we will be having another meeting later in the month of July, so hopefully at that point, the facility subcommittee can kind of report back and let everybody know what's going on there.
Sounds good.
Just for your, I won't be able to attend either.
Right.
Okay.
Just wanted you to know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, well, yeah, because Linda had
Yeah.
doodle. So those 2 meetings would be Friday, July 6th and Tuesday, July 10th at 9 o'clock, and it would be here.
Yep, here, and then I'll have those posted tomorrow for you.
Yeah. So we'll start that work next week, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Dennis, can I ask a quick question?
Certainly.
Did we skip over the enrollment report?
It was part of the budget, I think.
Was that part of it?
Yeah, I think it was part of the budget document.
It was a separate memorandum, the enrollment report about from the elementary school level highlights in terms of class size in the middle school?
That's an appendices in the budget.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just checking.
I think it was the same as before, right? They didn't change.
It didn't change. That was the same appendix that was in the previous budget document. When I
All right.
updated the numbers in the moving like the therapeutic program into the different accounts,
Okay.
that's all that changed. Any of the attachments to the budget didn't change.
All right, I'm sorry, I just read it as a separate document.
No problem.
Good with that?
Yep, good with
We don't
that.
have to do anything, so we'll do those 2 dates, and
Yep, we'll get those posted.
we'll just let John know since he's not here, but
Yes,
hopefully he'll be back. I think he'd be back by then, so.
he will. Yeah, he said he could go to both.
Okay, great. All right, so the next thing is I did ask the superintendent to put an item on just for us to kind of quickly go over our list of agenda items that we put together beginning of the year, or beginning of, starting in April, just so we can kind of see what we've accomplished and what we still need to accomplish. And, I think the good thing is we've accomplished a lot. We've accomplished most of our outline goals, our district goals in terms of the dual enrollment program. I think it's slated to go in the fall. We've just approved all the monies for the therapeutic classroom. We're going to start working on the capital plan next week, so all those things are already swinging on. With our professional practice goals, we did adjust the agenda a little bit, and that's something we'll talk about, other adjustments we might want to make going forward. We had our MASC workshop the other day. As part of that, what I would like to do, if nobody's opposed to it, is send out a committee self-evaluation, and just so when we get to the next part, which is evaluating our goals for this year and establishing goals next year, we have sort of a jumping off point for that. So I'd like to, if everybody's okay with that, MASC does have a self-evaluation form. I'd like to get that out to people in the next couple of weeks, and that'll give you some time to look at that and kind of make some judgments as far as that's concerned. We're going to be working on the policies next, and that's going to be continuing. So, I mean, most of the things that we set up for goals, I think we're in pretty good shape. Again, if we could, in August, get to looking at our goals and establishing new ones, looking at the superintendent's goals and, starting the evaluation process for that, that'd be great, assuming we get to everything else. And then the other things, a lot of them we've already crossed off the list. You'll see a lot of that are already completed. What we'll probably do is kind of hide those items as we add more items so the list doesn't get too long, but kind of keep them in case we ever want to reference them. The one is still out there in terms of the website. That's going to be connected to a lot of things, as Barbara mentions, the functionality in terms of searches, what we're going to do hosting with our policies. We talked about improving our communication, how we can do that. So that's all going to be kind of ingrained. But in the meantime, if people have thoughts on the website, if you look at our website and there are things that you see could be improved, like the search function or anything like that, or if you see other school websites, if you have a chance to go and look at other school websites and see what they have that we don't have, maybe, that, when we get to that point of all right, what can we do to improve, we have some things that we can go back to and say, at this school, you can do this and this and this, and, I didn't know we're kind of limited to our platform and all that, but there's some things that we can do. So that's just something that, before we get to that point, if we, individually, we could all do that, or if, any of the people in the general public have things about the website they want to let us know about, please, email any of us and let us know. We can bring that forward too. And so, again, I think we've gotten a lot of things done. There are obviously new things to come, as we saw tonight, so we'll be adding new things on the list. If anybody else has new items they want to add, just let me know, and we'll just kind of add them.
Just a couple things. I think that as time has gone on, things have come into a little bit better focus for me. So under transportation, can we include in that, because I don't think we've resolved this, the whole issue of the parking fees, the parking pass fees, and what has to be done with that? And then under school committee liaisons, can we also include in that just evaluating our current duties and whether or not we want to add or subtract anything?
Yep.
And then the final thing,
I'm sorry, Donna, where are you on that one?
which one?
I don't know, you said something about evaluating.
I'm sorry.
You said something about evaluating.
School committee liaison duties. So it says that it's completed, but I think one of the things that we talked about in the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before that, under school committee liaisons, it's under topics,
Oh, yes, yes.
okay, was, just evaluating, are these, committees, or should we take a look at changing some of them, or?
I put that as a follow-up action on that
Okay.
part.
And
What was
then
the other one was?
The parking, I'll add that one.
Yeah.
And then the last one was, with regards to student fees, is to include in that the procedures, because I think especially coming into this next school year for coaches and advisors, what are the procedures for fundraising? Reporting of funds, how can parents find out? I brought this up before, but you go to a PTO meeting, and they give you every month, they give you a breakdown of, what the monies have been spent, and we don't do that for any, and I don't think that that would be necessarily a bad idea. So that if parents wanted to see, I don't know, I'm trying to give me a club, DECA, okay, how much money they raised and what it was spent on it, they would be able to see that,
Well, We do have that. Like Joanna's office in the business office
And I knew
manages that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we, each of the club advisors would receive like a report detailing their activity for the month, as far as like what they paid out, what they took in and all of that.
But I'm talking about, so maybe the parents should know that they can request that, that's all.
Is that something that you would, I mean, we could, Joanna, I'm just thinking out loud here, but we could do like a quarterly report or something like that when we do our quarterly financials. We could just list the QuickBook report by club
Yeah.
that we give the club advisors and put it on the agenda for you to see.
Yeah, and the reason I asked, this has been a big concern, I
Yeah.
think, for parents, is, we're writing out these checks,
Right.
where does it go? How does this happen? And then, like, what's the difference between a GoFundMe account, for example, that somebody may have
That's a dirty
established-
word. We don't talk about
Exactly,
that.
right, and I know that,
Right.
okay, but I think that parents think
Right.
that it's connected to the school.
Okay.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but I'm just saying that I think that it's important that we talk about procedures,
Sure.
for, if you're a coach and, you can't set up a GoFundMe account.
Right.
And
Right.
the parents need to know that if they're being asked for
Mhm.
money through that, then that's not okay. But if a parent does it separately, that's something completely different, separate from the school system.
Right. So one of the friends groups.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
One of the things that we've discussed in the past that kind of relates to it, talking about is putting approved fundraisers on the website, so that,
Yeah.
because we've had kids go in the community that can,
Right,
you know.
exactly.
I mean, and it would give them a place to check and see if it's legitimate.
Right.
So I'd be.
Okay. That could be some summer work too.
Yeah, no,
My
so-
summer's filling up
And
quickly.
John, I think, had mentioned about even maybe setting up some type of subcommittee to
Right.
take a look at that and make some recommendations to the school committee, so
Mhm.
I'd be happy to help out with that as well. I know he was interested.
And some of this could come up when we do the policy review. I'm sure there are many of suggested policies for fundraising and all that stuff.
Yep.
We'll definitely stumble upon as we go through. So I just wanted to take the time to just go through that. And Ada, to say, nice job, because we have done a lot. We still have a lot to do, but, I think, we're heading in the right direction, so. Anything else on that? Again, if anybody has anything new they want to add on there, let me know. And we can do that. All right, so now we're to the policy part.
On policies, I tried to give you just a little cover memo that just talks about the 4 meetings that you've had so far, dating back since March. As you know, Mike Gilbert from the MASC comes out and works with the policy subcommittee, and we basically have been reviewing 2 sections per meeting. So we've reviewed sections A through H at this point. He has sent us back, I think, at least 4 of the sections. I wanted to go through them when he sent back section A and B, and actually, I mentioned to you at the last meeting, took me a little longer than I thought it was going to just read through them and then actually kind of cross-reference what we said we were going to do in the subcommittee to what he actually put into the policies. So they're quite voluminous. There are a lot of policies. So what we ended up doing was just kind of bringing forward 2 sections tonight instead of 4. So I'll try to put like 2 on an agenda going forward per meeting until we kind of approve them. And the way it's actually working with him, because now he gave me the 4 sections, I can start working on C and D and get those queued up for your next meeting. If I get them done early, I'm going to send them to you early separately, just to give you a little extra lead time to kind of read through. But we do have sections A and B before you tonight. These basically incorporate all of the recommendations that were discussed in the policy subcommittee. And again, the first 2 sections are foundations and basic commitments, and B is board governance and operations. So,
Yeah,
they're before you.
I know Barbara and Al have already gone through these and made their recommendations, and, we've had a little bit of time to read through them, so I'm assuming everybody has read through them, so if we could I could just go through and just read the title of the policy, and then if anybody has any concerns or questions on that, and then we can improve everything at the end, I think, right?
Yeah, what I would recommend doing is probably approve, like, just one vote to kind of adopt A and B
Okay.
tonight.
Yeah.
Then at the very end, we have to talk with him about, like, when you actually implement these policies. Do you wait and do them as a big batch in the end? Do you do like A and B now and then actually start acting upon them? I really don't know, because some of the MASC policies don't jive with our policies. So you don't want to like abandon something that you're currently doing and not. So it might be nice, because I do think this is actually, we're making pretty good progress,
Yeah.
to technically like approve these As and Bs, so we don't have to then come back to them. But talk to him, and the next time we have a subcommittee, about like when do we actually implement? And do we do it as we go, or do we do it in one fell swoop in the end?
Bobby, you want to say something before we start? Or?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain how we're going about this. So when we meet with Mr. Gilbert from the Mass Association of School Committees, the MASC, he has already gone through our policies, and he does a comparison between the language in our policies and the language that the MASC, endorses. And sometimes he'll say, your policy's fine. And then he'll have an example where we miss the boat entirely, and this is the language that we have to use. So it's an easy vote sometimes. Sometimes it's just a matter of, kind of going through the words and saying, I like this sentence, but I don't like this. And, it takes time. It's a time-consuming process, but in the end, I think we've made good progress. I do appreciate Jay's, point that if we vote on these tonight, and then during our subsequent meeting, 3-4 months from now, we find something that we approve tonight doesn't jive with something we're working on 3 or 4 months from now, we've got a problem. So I'm a little hesitant to vote on them yet. That's, my only thought. I don't mean to put the kibosh on it, but I just think it could be, I love the idea. I know what you're saying, we could just implement them as we go along. I just am concerned that in 3 months, we're looking at something and go, oh, we just adopted that policy.
Could you give me an example?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head because we haven't gone through everything.
Right,
But,
right.
Something could arise that is in conflict, perhaps. And I feel like we need to go through the whole process before, and then we can do it incrementally, and our votes will stick.
Right.
Can we conditionally approve them? I mean,
Yeah, I guess what I was concerned about was, if we approve these A and B tonight,
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be anything here that we're necessarily not going to jive with. But you know how when we're going through the policies, in our old section A, there may have been something that technically is in his section G, right? So
Yes, I
if
do
we
remember.
approve this A and B, I don't want to have, this is fine, we can work under these.
Yeah.
I don't want to have it be that we just took out our old section A.
Right.
Because one of our old section A policies might actually be in G.
Yeah.
You'd still want to have that in effect as it goes. So I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with the ones before you, but it's I don't want to relinquish the ones we already have on the books.
Right. These are, as I would say, the easy ones. These are the very general kind
Right.
of language.
Right.
But as we get into this more and more, and keep in mind, our policies are customized to Chelmsford. They don't apply to any other community. And so he'll come in and say, that's great for Chelmsford, but this is the law. It's a long, arduous process, and
These look fantastic.
I'm not, it's just, he's done a lot of work,
Yeah. Well, so have you
Well,
guys.
he's-
Yeah, I mean, this
So
is,
the
I
whole
like
subcommittee's
it.
done a lot of work on this, and even reading through it's a lot. I mean, you could go through and kind of, I guess, conditionally approve these. I think the thing is, I don't think you'd want to sit with the policy manual at the end of this and be expected to go through every page and approve it. If you give kind of a tacit approval to A and B, or if you see something wrong with A and B, let's fix it now, instead of having to go back and fix it a year from now. But that was my only thing, because it is kind of nice where it's in chunks and it's manageable now. I would almost kind of give it like a tacit blessing and say that eventually.
Approval versus implementation.
yeah.
Okay. Right?
I would say conditional approval, based, just conditioned on there will be no conflicts. If any conflicts arise later that we had no knowledge of,
Or could you do a conditional, I'm just speaking out loud, could you do a conditional approval upon complete acceptance?
Yes,
of
that's
the
what I'm,
final
that's
policy
exactly what I'm
manual?
So,
Right?
yeah.
Because,
don't forget that. We're gonna need it.
okay, no, but I mean, that way at least, we'll cover section A and B now, so
Right.
we don't necessarily have to come back in the end. But there's probably some kind of a blessing vote that you take at the end of the whole thing
Yeah.
to adopt that manual, which is then going to supersede anything else that was there.
But won't be searchable on our website.
Well, that's a topic for another day. All right, so if everybody's okay, we'll go through them, just read the title, I'm not gonna read the whole policy, and if anybody has any questions or concerns, great, we'll talk about it, if not, we'll just go to the next one and go on. So the first one, AA, school district legal status.
And that is right from the Mass General laws.
AB, the people in their school district. Good.
Good.
Okay. AC, non-discrimination. A lot of these are just more specific than what we have.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
those are
and,
both new.
you know, you can see on these, obviously the viewers at home can't, but when it says source at the end, that's MASC language. If it says Chelmsford or Chelmsford Public Schools, then we decided to keep our own language.
ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. The one question I have is just on the next couple, they all reference Title IX officer or grievance officer.
There's gonna be a listing
Okay.
at the end of the policy manual.
Okay.
Because we talked about not putting the actual names of the people in.
Yeah.
So what I did is kept a running list of all the policies that reference a particular coordinator or sexual harassment officer or whatnot,
Okay.
and we'll actually just have a page that lists them all at the end of the
good.
policy manual. And that can be updated annually
Yep.
based on who's in their role.
Okay, great.
I really like the legal references too.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
We have them in our
Yeah.
current policy.
Oh, yeah.
It
okay.
just,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Like, they're more
time-consuming.
common, right?
It's time-consuming to update them, so this is the best part of going through these policies, is they've already done that work. Even if we adopted our own, you know.
Right.
Next section, ACAB, sexual harassment. Good.
Yep.
ACE, non-discrimination on the basis of disability. Everybody's good there?
Good.
AD, mission statement. Okay, ADC, tobacco products on school premises prohibited. That one has the vaping and everything else in it, so
Well,
this
it
is-
will soon be illegal.
Yep. But, you know, even adults, it just
Yeah, yeah,
keeps them
good
from
point.
using that also.
Good point.
Okay, everybody's good with that?
Yep.
ADDA, background checks. This is a very long one.
Very.
Everybody good there?
Yeah.
ADDA-R, DCJIS model, Corey policy. It's more on background checks, basically. We good? ADF wellness policy. So look like here, we just kind of condensed a bunch of our policies into.
That was odd, that we largely
Yeah,
kept, yeah.
we took phys ed and health and nutrition and everything and kind of put it all in one.
I think that was our policy.
Yeah, was it? This one?
I think so. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty new,
Yeah.
so I'm sure they, got it from MASC.
Yeah, I think we had 8 separate policies that combined
Yeah.
into one big policy, so. Okay. So everybody's good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, ADF, and AE, commitment to accomplishment. Last one, I believe, in A. Everybody's
It's good.
good with section A?
Yep.
All right, section B. BA, school committee operational goals. Questions? BAA, evaluation of school committee operational procedures. Have we had either one of those before?
I like them.
Yeah, I don't think they were in ours, though. BB, school committee legal status. BBA, school committee powers and duties. All good?
Good.
BBAA, school committee member authority. BBB, school committee elections. It's ours. This is the Chelmsford. BBBA/BBBB, school committee member qualifications / oath of office.
I have to say, that is a pet peeve of mine, because ours are numbered,
Yeah.
and he chooses to do them alphabetized, and I think it just gets crazy. But, whatever.
I think that's how
It's
most
the,
people do it
it's
now.
the
They
national codification
Yeah,
system.
I just, you know, it just,
That one's a little crazy.
Yeah. Okay, BBBC, School Committee Member Resignation. BBBE, Unexpired Term Fulfillment. BCA, School Committee Member Ethics.
What number was that?
BCA.
BCA, yeah,
BCA.
okay.
You good with that one?
Yep.
BCB, Conflict of Interest. Looks like a Chelmsford thing.
well, it's, I mean, it's the law.
Yeah.
It's right out of the MGL.
Okay, everybody's good? BDA, School Committee Organizational Meeting. Where it references first regular meeting, we usually do just a special meeting, is that?
I'm sorry?
It references that first line, it's a school committee, it's first regular meeting. That meeting we have after.
We have two types of meetings. It's a regular meeting and a special meeting.
Okay, so, but when we have our organizational meeting, it's not always a full school committee meeting, is it?
That's usually just, it's posted as a regular
Okay.
meeting,
All right,
but
that's
it's,
what
we
I
just call it an organizational
that's
meeting.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanna make sure.
Yep.
BDB, School Committee Officers. BDD, School Committee Superintendent Relationship. Everybody's good with that? BDE, Subcommittees of the School Committee. BDF, Advisory Committees to the School Committee. BDFA, School Councils. BDG, School Attorney. BE, School Committee Meetings. Al, you good?
It takes me longer
That's
because I'm
fine.
going back through my,
We're on BE.
okay.
Okay. BEC, Executive Sessions. Sounds like we had that one.
I don't know that we did.
Yeah, I don't think we did. BEDA, Notification of School Committee Meetings. You good? BEDB, Agenda Preparation and Dissemination. BEDBA, Consent Agenda. BEDC, Quorum. Barbara?
Yeah.
BEDD, Rules of Order. BEDF, Voting Method. BEDG, Minutes. BEDH, Public Comment at School Committee Meetings. So if I'm reading this one right, we're gonna limit public comment, at least the beginning, to agenda items.
Yeah.
That's correct. Okay. Okay, and we can talk about other venues later. Okay. Is everybody else good?
Yeah, I don't want to let too much time go, though, before we have that other discussion.
Yeah, I was gonna mention it at the end, having that maybe next time. BEDH-E, Guidelines for Public Comment. BEDL, Remote Participation. BEE, special procedure for conducting hearings. BG, school committee policy development. BGB, policy adoption. BGC, policy revision and review. BGD, school committee review of procedures. BGE, policy dissemination. BGF, suspension of policies. BHC, school committee staff communications. BHE, use of electronic messaging by school committee members. BIA, new school committee member orientation. Which I don't think we did do that. Right, Donna? BIBA, school committee conferences, conventions, and workshops. BID, school committee member compensation and expenses. BJ, school committee legislative program. BK, school committee memberships. That's it.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, any questions, problems? Piece of
No.
cake?
Barbara, wow, that looks great.
Yeah, no. Those are just the first two sections.
I know, but it looks great.
Yeah.
I really like it.
How many sections are there?
Too many.
Too many.
Way too many.
12 or 14?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so, how do we want to make this motion? So-
I don't know if we want to just do a kind of a motion to approve conditionally sections A and B, or condition upon the overall acceptance
Okay.
of the
yeah.
new policy manual.
So moved.
Just something so we don't have to go back and redo A and B again at the end of the whole thing.
So Al's made a motion to conditionally approve sections A and B.
Second.
Second, any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
That works.
Works.
And like I said, I'll put the next two on the next meeting, but I'll try to get them out to you ahead of time, so you have time to read them. Last item for me this evening is just approval of one conference request, one field trip. I'm just gonna go to the MASS Executive Institute just for 2 days in July, the week after next. And the CHS Band, Choir, and Orchestra is looking to do a public performance in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, next May, the 23rd to the 26th.
Is that Memorial Day weekend?
I have no idea.
Planning the trip?
No, it just seemed like Philadelphia would be a great place to be.
That's true, that's true.
We can do that at the end. Yeah, I
So
don't know.
just- So those two?
Yeah, just,
Just us.
please approve both.
I move we approve Dr. Lang's trip to the MASS Executive Institute and the Chelmsford High School Band, Choir, and Orchestra's trip to Philadelphia in May.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Okay, liaison reports. Anybody have any liaison reports?
No, just the Friends of Music and CPAC have both elected their new boards. And the bottling can drive for the Friends of Music will be on July 14th.
Anybody else?
No, I missed all of my assignments when I was out of town for my father's funeral, so I apologize, and I will be at the next meetings for all of the ones I missed.
Al, anything on Rotary or?
No, I would comment that I just spent the weekend with 200 sophomores from all over central and eastern Massachusetts at the Rotary Leadership Institute. And
When we know about closing.
Chelmsford, we sent 10 sophomores, and we had 3 group leaders who were kids that went last year, and it's competitive. They had almost half the kids that went last year applied to be group leaders the next year. And then we had, there were 6 kids that came back to do the third year as leaders. And we also had, some of you may remember, Arun Benagopal,
Yeah.
who came back to do a cappella, you know, with his Northeastern group, and he came back to speak that we added a new section on after, what after Ryler. In other words, when you go back to your school for the 2 years, and then when you go on to college or whatever after that, you know, what can you take away from this institute? And it's a great opportunity. There's very little direct talking to people. It's kids doing things. And one thing I will share, because I think it has tremendous, I mean, these kids are not obviously the bottom of their classes. And in Culture Walk, where they are asked to, if you think you belong to this group, and they'll say people who are adopted, they ask them to walk, and nobody has to do any of this, but they do. So they walk in, they're asked, you know, what do you want us to know about belonging to the group? What do you never want to hear about this group again, and so forth. And one of the things that we got into is being, in terms of communication, being either shut out or ignored or rejected. And we had different sessions, so it wasn't all at once, but all of these kids were really bothered by being ignored. I mean, even more than being rejected. Rejected's is overt, you can see it. But in a number of the activities, there's one where kids leave the room, and the people that stay there are asked to treat one like they're not there, totally support one, and totally reject one. And sometimes they figure out something's wrong. Like one of the kids, you know, I was supported, because we asked, what was good about being supported? It's the first time they supported me all weekend, kind of thing. But those activities really get at some deep issues, but I think it's worthy of note, because we're seeing it with obviously social emotional things. But even kids who are active in school and wouldn't be considered to be outcasts, particularly when they're not included, it's really damaging to them. So anyway, that's enough on that.
You know, just happened to go to Center School's last PTO meeting, and they were wrapping things up like all the schools were with their enrichment programs. They're catching up from the snow days still, actually. And then all their fourth graders moving up, all those celebrations and field days, and hopefully the weather held up for them on all those days they had. But I just want to mention that at Center School they had a very veteran group that was in charge of the PTO, and unbelievably organized, and I just wanted to, you know, give them a quick shout out, because they did a great job. They're leaving a great group behind them, but a lot of them are moving up to middle school, so middle schools are going to benefit from that. But a very, very organized group, and I was very impressed with them all year.
I just had one other thing. I was fortunate enough to go to a number of the athletic contests, particularly playoffs at the end of the year, most notably with volleyball and with girls lacrosse. And I think it's safe to say that the behavior of our kids was commendable, forgetting the winning and losing. I mean, we obviously had a good spring, but I saw, you know, a lot of really commendable behavior on the part of the kids, which I think, and I'll broaden that. In the various things that I've gone to, I've heard nothing but good things about this senior class. Apparently, it was an outstanding class.
Any other liaison assignments? Okay, any new new issues? One thing I just want to mention, we are going to have to meet in July at some point, just to,
Yeah, when we get a little closer to like when we know the books are gonna close,
Yeah.
we'll have to have one last meeting to kind of make our final transfers for the year, talk about what our fund balances are gonna be. If anything comes up over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I don't anticipate it being like a heavy meeting.
Yeah.
I probably won't put 2 more policies on for that meeting.
Okay.
We'll wait for August for that. But that could be like a cleanup type meeting, so if there's any little things you need, we could certainly do that.
so we're looking like third week, fourth week?
Probably the third week.
Third week?
Yeah, we're just waiting for a final date. I would tentatively say probably that we're looking at that third week.
Do we have 2 meetings in August or one?
Maybe the 17th. August, we only meet once. We only meet the third Wednesday.
So tentatively the 17th?
Well,
What?
the
books close July 13th. And then, so it could be the 17th or the 24th. I mean, they don't, I mean, she closes them like in August, but the last activity for accounts payable warrant is the 13th. So,
What works better for you?
Yeah, I'm not here the week of the 23rd.
I'm just, if I need to get the packet ahead of time, you know, that Friday before, it'd probably be better for me to have it be the 24th.
You're not here the 24th.
I'm not here the week of the 23rd. We can talk afterward, we can
Yeah.
pull for some dates.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do later the week of the 16th too, you know, if we needed to. It doesn't have to be a Tuesday night.
Okay.
But we can do Linda loves doing doodle polls.
I love them.
So we can, polls, we can do that and
And it's a
figure out
poll.
what dates. Huh?
It's a poll,
A
not
poll, not a pool. And we could,
I like the doodle.
we can figure that out.
Fine.
Can we also talk at that July meeting about whether or not we need to have one or two meetings in August?
Whether what?
We need to have one or two meetings in August. Just because with the beginning of the school year, I just want to make sure that we're ready to go. You know, so,
Yeah, I mean, as far as a regular meeting,
yeah, regular meeting, yeah,
yeah, because we'll probably have other, I mean, kind of like we're doing with facilities.
Right.
Probably for the goals and things like that, but,
right.
yeah, we can see what kind of things come up. Hopefully not too
Yeah, I
much.
mean,
Yeah.
we can meet. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing we can't. Typically, there's just not a lot of activity after the fiscal year closes
Right.
and then the new year starts until we get rolling. But why don't we see what happens with the first couple of facility meetings?
Okay.
And if we get together for that year end, no one's opposed to meeting. It's just, if there's not a lot on the agenda,
Right.
you don't want to have people come out for nothing.
Right, but I also want to make sure that we're proactive enough so that, you know, with transportation and things like this, the start up of the school year and making sure that we have the information out and available to parents, so that, you know, maybe we can, you know, prevent some snafus at the beginning of the year.
Announce that there will be snafus at the beginning of the year.
That could be one
Please
of the
expect
things we need to
snafus.
talk
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, you know, what we did with the policy, I think was a good idea, but if we had changed our policy on public comment, and we accepted it and we're gonna implement it, then we would have to kind of change our agenda in terms of how we
Yeah.
have people do public comment at the beginning and that type of thing, but since we're just tentatively, we don't have to do it, but maybe we can talk
Right.
about other avenues for, you know, people to come in, and maybe at the end of the meeting, when we have this new items area for, if they wanna speak about things that aren't on the agenda, they can do that, so, maybe we'll put that on the next one.
Yeah, I think the more that we can get done ahead of time, the better off we're gonna be
Right.
as the school year starts.
All right, any other things? All right, I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
These are for you. Did you
Aye.
want the contract?
4-0.